Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
High fly ball hit to deep left center field. Forget about it. Long gone. A grand slam home run. Christopher Morel. 5-0 Cubs here in the fifth.
There's a hard hit ball to center field. Did he get enough of it? Backing up is Rojas. Looks up and it's gone. A home run straight away center field. Third of the season for Nolan Gorman. And the Cardinals get on the board first.
Steph gets it back, gets a screen, launches the three. Gouche! Boa nights, as Keith Santos would say. That means good night in Portuguese, because this one is over. 130 to 112 with 150 to go. And the Warriors are going to get a big win here at Crypto.com Arena. There's the horn. The Warriors win it 134-120, and they secure the tiebreaker with the Lakers, who are without Anthony Davis tonight.
I've not known Coach White for very long, but I feel like I've known him my whole life. Like, when you guys talk to him, you can feel it. Like, he's one of those guys. Like, I love being around Coach, and whether he was here or not, I'm happy. If he could go somewhere and elevate his career and elevate his family and the way he lives, I'm all for that. But I am relieved that he's here because I think we accomplished a couple things on defense, but we left a lot on the table.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on a Wednesday. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. DB, how are you this morning?
Seems like a lot.
There's a lot going on here.
Is that a lot? Is that...
I remembered where we're broadcast today, though, so that's a plus.
Well, that's a bonus. That's a pillar.
That's a good. Well, not just that, but instead of just being like, "Hey, we're on the radio," we're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
Yeah, this is going to be home to a huge graduation party.
Yeah,
yeah, we're at that time.
You finally went back to school?
May 25th. Yep. Yep. That's funny too, because I spent a little bit of time talking to Nate Gary. I don't know if it was Thursday or Saturday, one of those days I was down there, and
yeah,
he's going back to school to get his degree too. And we're just talking about how I don't know if it would be more difficult or easier to go to school now. There's so many things that are so accessible at your fingertips, but you have to be built that way too.
Yeah.
Everything.
So it's like, well, yeah, it's very convenient.
But you gotta be self-motivated.
But am I disciplined enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's funny when you say, "Oh, I'm going back to school." I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that.
It's kind of the
although I have flirted with going to get recertified.
Oh,
just
yeah?
so I had it in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Especially as a sped guy, because I mean, I could always do something.
Yeah, I mean those are desperately needed.
Yeah,
people in terms of qualifications.
But yeah, no, not me.
Not you.
Knucklehead.
Zoe's graduating kindergarten. Yeah, party.
Yeah, she's probably graduating 4th grade with her little obnoxious self.
Yeah. No, come on now.
Listen, this girl worries about 4 or 5 varying degrees in the temp of the bathtub.
I mean, listen,
so
she
annoying.
Sounds like she has a very particular preference, which I appreciate.
Bun today, no pony for the bathtub.
I like people that know what they're getting into.
Yeah, she's a piece of work.
I work hard in school.
She works hard in school. Come on.
So I'm still like, I wondered if you were gonna have your gloat stick on. I don't know. It was a big win for you guys last night. We laid an egg.
You know,
and the more I watched Draymond Green, and I know I should have disliked him like 6 years ago. I can't even stomach him now. He made 2 threes early. I was like, yep, here we go.
You weren't there for the 5 for 7 for 3 from the. I mean, he didn't miss one in the first half.
Oh, I know.
And I'll be honest, I was a little impressed with him.
Yeah.
Because if I'm 5 for 5 from 3 at any point in the game, I'm taking way more than 2 more, no matter how many I miss.
Yeah,
I'm getting to 5 for 10 for sure.
It's such an easy formula for them.
Yeah, if Draymond plays good, they're good.
Yeah, they win. And it's funny because I said that yesterday. And of course, AD, I think he had an eyelash. No, I'm not going to give AD a hard time. Like, he's been balling. But it would have been nice to get that one.
That's an important one for both sides there.
Yes, indeed.
I will say, if you're the Warriors. I get it was a good win. They played really well.
Come on out and play.
That's a different kind of Warriors. If you're the Golden State Warriors. Also, if you're just a human being, I think you have a moral obligation if Steph Curry is 6 for 6 to let that man cook. He took
him
cook. He took 9 shots the entire game.
Yeah.
If Wardell Stephen Curry II
Oh Lord
is 6 for 6 from 3-point range, you have an obligation to God and country to let that man shoot his way out of that hot streak.
Mm-hmm. So everybody's guy except mine had a night last night.
Who's yours?
Everybody.
Well, nobody that I cheer for on their particular team had an exceptionally good night.
Oh, okay.
Even though something's wrong with the Twins, even though the Dodgers got another one, they got out to an early lead. But Shane, how about your guy Nathan McKinnon? I mean, he is getting his puck.
Freaking bats.
He's getting his puck game right. I think he had another 3 last night. It's a lot going on in the sports world, and we're kind of poo-pooing my favorite sport, man, baseball.
Who poo-pooed?
It's early. I know we got to kind of pace ourselves.
We do. It's a long season for baseball, and there's going to be parts of the year.
I listened to my man Justin Verlander yesterday. I was tickled.
I've got some baseball stuff in here for later.
Oh, that's nice.
I do. I'm
That's
trying
nice.
to throw you a little
Hopefully,
bone here.
hopefully it's not 13-11 in Lawrence.
What about 7-6 in Omaha?
Yeah, wowzer.
Listen, the midweek games, I don't know.
I'm going to stop saying that, though. They have to be important to somebody.
No, they're important. They are. But I don't.
Everybody's RP is just taking dings.
Important versus
RPI.
RIP to the RPI of Nebraska with the loss to Kansas last. No, but I mean, important and indicative are not the same thing.
I understand.
You know what I mean?
With you.
Like, that's an important game for Nebraska to not drop. I don't know that it's indicative of who they are as a baseball team.
Well, it is of some midweeks, man. There's a few little head scratchers in there.
Yeah, but that's not how you play the postseason.
It's just frustrating.
You don't play postseason baseball like you do midweek
but
baseball.
you'd really like to put yourself in position
to be in the postseason. I mean, we might be at that spot where it's like, hey, you're in the Big Ten. You're going to have to do work in conference no matter what. You kind of just got to do it. I don't know. I don't know that you're looking at Big Ten as, hey, winning or losing at Kansas is going to make or break.
I don't think so. And by the way, Shane, I know you have 17 teams in the NHL. One of your 17.
The Red Wings lost.
Well, and they have the Pens up next.
Oh, that'd be good.
Well, you think? It's Thursday, in case you're wondering.
That'll be solid right there.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been. I mean,
I think that's a 6 o'clock tilt.
They've been on a slide a little bit, but I mean, should be a pretty good game.
I might just schedule like 5 minutes every day.
Do you ever know anybody that could like the Wings and the Avs?
I don't know.
Historic rivals.
I don't know anybody that likes as many different teams as Shane, except for maybe Drake.
Raiders Lions.
Oh, come on, Shane.
He's kind of got that Drake thing going where he's just like, hey, I like them and I like them, and he's gonna be an Arkansas fan now because Coach Cal's down there.
Hey, did you?
Although not yet, apparently.
Yeah. What the?
It's a little weird. I don't really know what's happening.
Should it be done?
Well, he didn't actually say he was leaving Kentucky until yesterday. So I don't know.
Is this one where the reports in their salary beat whether Trevor has actually said yes or not in A&M?
And apparently maybe he already had. What my question is though is it seems like he's trying to control what people think about the situation, like with the video yesterday, and he's it seems like he's trying to do the noble thing for Kentucky basketball. It's like, bro, you just took another job. It's fine.
Yeah, and he's totally in the driver's seat. I mean, he's just it's what you said Monday, I think, and then double down on it yesterday with the statistics. Kentucky needs him more than he needs Kentucky.
Speaking of Kentucky, Shane, can you play the Wilbon clip for me?
I'm
mad.
Are you mad?
I'm mad already.
The guy hates Nebraska. It's fine.
And I hate him. Let's go.
Wow.
About this. And I don't know where it leads Kentucky because there's some young guys out there that we may not even know and think of as names, and Kentucky may be too scared to go with a neophyte. But they may be able to do a great job in Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky's going to just go out and get some famous guy to come in and be better than John Calipari. I don't believe that for a second. So it leaves them still in a search, Tony. But you can go into the transfer portal. You don't know how long people are staying. There's
everything's in flux to a degree. That it's not the old days when you're going to saddle up because you got a famous coach and just go through it. I believe Kentucky better be careful that they're not Nebraska football. They better be careful in their arrogance. And nobody's more arrogant than Kentucky basketball, that they're not Nebraska football.
First of all, Mike Wilbon, you don't know what you're talking about.
Is this the Big Ten? Is this Nebraska wanting to play football in the Big Ten again?
Kentucky better be careful that they're not Nebraska football.
He's become like
he's a caricature.
and
a dumbass.
Listen, I used to really like him. So this is probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, he had some connections and with my sister and the industry that she does in the media. It's how I kind of formed some of my opinions about some of these guys out here, like Wilbon and Jason Whitlock, who she knew when he was at the Star, and so I get some background
before he fell all the way off the ledge.
No, he was already falling.
Okay,
he
publicly he wasn't as.
So, yeah, I guess personally may have been
further along than
further back than he is now. It's just his views, which
gotcha.
I mean, and not everybody's going to be the same, but
yeah,
there weren't a lot of people that had glowing things to say about him when he was at the Star. But anyway, I used to like Wilbon, and it was Kornheiser I didn't like.
Yeah.
Now I'm not sure I like either.
I don't.
But I don't watch almost any of it anymore unless it's in the background. And like I'm getting ready, like prepping for dinner or something like that. I'm not a PTI guy.
I'm not a regular PTI watcher. I had somebody send this to me.
It's on loop, isn't it? It seems like it's on a lot.
Yeah, because it's a 20-minute show, or I mean half hour with commercials or whatever, but then they just play it 100 times. But I mean, first of all, he's just not right. Like, he's just not accurate. First of all, about Kentucky or about Nebraska. Like, if you're going to make comparisons, at least make good ones.
Yeah.
If you're going to, especially if they're going to be inflammatory, like, it almost feels like he's just trolling Nebraska at this point, which he very well might be because he's, I don't think, very good at what he does, but that's a different story, right? I mean, listen, we do a radio show for 3 hours every day. It's not that hard to come up with 30 minutes of content. We're going to do it here before the first segment's over. So, you don't have to, like, if you're gonna say things, at least make them sort of accurate. Because at what point, outside of Nebraska going for Frank Solich from Frank Solich to Bill Callahan 20 years ago, has Nebraska gone for the big name coach?
Yeah.
Right? And I don't even I understand that happened. That was a long time ago. Nebraska's also taken a lot of humble pie since then. But in what world was Bo Pelini, a guy who'd never been a head coach, like that's the big name you're worried about? Like that's where Nebraska went, hey, don't forget about my guy Mike Riley, who nobody was going to hire.
Hired Scott Frost, who I think most would consider was one or two best available.
And definitely would have gotten a different Power 5 job in that cycle, both UCLA and Florida.
Although Florida now looks like
they've backpedaled on it.
May not have been a thing, but yeah.
But it also may have been hey, we didn't get him, we're going to trash him. I don't know, right? But he was definitely getting a Power 5 job in that cycle. And then they do swing big for Matt Rule, and I get the wins haven't come yet, but looks like it worked out. Kentucky, on the other hand, we went through this yesterday. Kentucky was incredibly successful going for the big name hire.
Triggered Ravi is a hilarious Ravi.
John Calipari was the biggest name on the market, and he wasn't even really on the market in 2010 when they hired him, 2009 when they hired him. And guess what he did the first year he was there? He went 35-3.
Is that pretty good?
That's not bad. Oh, and by the way, third year in, wins a national title. We already went through the fact yesterday that he had 4 Final Four appearances in his first 6 years, which matched the previous quarter century for Kentucky basketball. So maybe they should hire the big name coach because that worked out pretty well for them last time.
I just didn't get, and a lot of times people just go out of their way
to be stupid.
Just to take shots. It's just not necessary, and it didn't fit. But he knows because Nebraska's gotten at him before the fan base. Like, I mean. He knows what he's doing.
Kentucky better be careful that they're not Nebraska football.
Is Rick Pitino a big name coach?
Yeah.
That worked out pretty well for him as well, didn't it? Oh, weird. So the last 2 times Hello,
friends.
The last 2 times they've gone out and hired big name coaches, Rick Pitino and John Calipari.
You mean Kentucky isn't a job suited for a neophyte?
They, I don't know, won national titles. So, like, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm just worried about Matthews not catching Lemieux. That's all I care about.
Maybe it works out for Kentucky when they hire the big name coach, as opposed to Billy Gillespie, who's toiling away at Tarleton State.
You seem very hurt right now. You're gonna be all right?
Gonna be all right.
Tubby Smith got fired at High Point. That's his alma mater. Couldn't keep it.
Again, top 5 in efficiency this year.
Al Huss, GOAT. Maybe they should hire Al Huss at Kentucky. Maybe is that the type of neophyte that Mike Wilbon's talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, how about that? That's my girl, man.
I mean,
have you seen the original TikTok of that, Shane? She's hilarious. They're like having a conversation on the bed.
I've not seen that.
Yeah, it's pretty
I did have a thought this morning that we should have a segment called Old Guys Watch TikTok. And then we just talk about what's on our feeds for like a half a segment.
Surprise, surprise.
That's what made me think of it was yesterday.
So I do have one that is dominating my feed right now. And I think it's because have you seen, is it Cussing Grandma or Crazy Grandma?
I don't know.
She's always talking to her son, Jake. Jake's filming her. She is a potty mouth sailor. So Coach Quinn and I have this thing. I send him a TikTok every day about his work because he and I are always talking about our jobs. So there's always something funny related. So I have a lot of work related.
Okay. Like office type stuff?
Yeah.
Not the show, but like.
I know older lady with glass. She cusses like every 2 seconds.
I think I've seen her, but she doesn't pop up on my feed much.
So I think she originally got famous. She was looking for turkeys for Thanksgiving, and they were too expensive.
Yes, I saw that one.
Yeah,
I did see that one.
That's her.
Okay.
And now
I didn't know it was like a series.
So like she's one, and I like the grandpa.
Okay.
Have I showed you him? He's always wearing different baseball caps, and he's driving. I think it's his nephew, maybe. I don't think it's his son.
I don't know that I've seen that one.
He has a little bit of a pipe mouth too, but he's just funny. Like, we have anything else we could do today? I'll show them to you. But yeah, some of the TikToks, and now sometimes if I don't have my AirPod in, because I just started using AirPods literally like 7 months ago.
Yeah.
I got stuck on probably last year. I got stuck on a plane. Can't remember where we're going, West Lafayette or somewhere. I didn't have any
like headphones or anything.
No, I had nothing.
That's not good.
I'm like, shoot, man, I've never really needed them before because I don't like anything on my head. But they do have these cool things now in 2023 that you just put in your ear. Yeah,
so you don't like the over the ear stuff?
I probably would. Caleb got some for Christmas that he thinks are better.
Yeah,
they're, I don't know, Bluetooth wireless or something.
Yeah,
he swears by those. He went on a walk last night and he put them on. I said the whole point of this is to talk. Like,
wait till we went on a walk with you?
Yeah,
and he put his headphones in.
Yeah,
that's kind of messed up.
Well, he had one ear open.
Caleb, come on, man.
Nah, he's so we're just like working on.
You gotta do better.
Mike too, just like working on his gait.
Yeah,
we're so weird around our house. It's like always doing the little things, but yeah. So I don't even like these.
Yeah,
it's not comfortable for me to wear these, and I take them off immediately.
Yeah,
so I don't like things over my ears.
Well, this is something we learned about DB today. Doesn't like stuff over his ears.
TikTok.
Big TikTok guy.
Yeah,
surprise, surprise.
I made another chicken pizza crust last night too. So how you like them apples?
I don't know. I haven't had one.
This smells delish.
It was significantly better than my first one because I was a little too light on the
seasoning.
Yeah, last time, and it resembled
usually
a little.
That's not a problem for people like you.
How about them apples?
I would have thought like Shane maybe had a little problem with seasoning, but
I told you my
short guys don't like seasoning.
Yeah.
Speaking of cultural cooking stereotypes,
usually people that look like me and look like you don't have a problem with seasoning.
Got the old Greek yogurt ready to go. Gonna drop the chicken in.
Don't love Greek yogurt.
Garam masala, a little turmeric. We're about ready.
I know you still can't believe that people look like me don't like yogurt, but
They got a pickle on the chicken sandwich.
You got to let it marinate. I typically like it overnight.
That's cool.
Be good.
Coming up on the show today, we've got Brian Christopherson from Husker.
OB Sizzle. A lot of hot takes.
I don't know if he's going to have hot takes or not. We'll see what happens.
He almost got ran over by a sausage.
We tried to warn people yesterday, right?
About what?
When I said, hey, newsflash, I think media is going to get extra time.
Yeah.
So be prepared for the reports, right?
Be locked in, be ready to go.
There's going to be a lot that came out of yesterday because
there was a lot that happened yesterday.
That's a good question.
People got to see more.
At 8:30, we've got Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Then we will wrap up the show at 9:45 with Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net because we got the Masters starting tomorrow.
Yeah, we do.
Got a lot of golf going on. One of my personal favorites, the par 3 contest on today.
No, not
a par 3 guy.
No, people that win that don't typically win them.
That's okay. They can be good at other things. It's like listen.
Well, if Augusta was a course of all par 3s, that'd be cool.
You win a 3-point contest doesn't mean you're the best basketball player in the world, but it's still nice.
What's wrong with you?
It's still nice to have. Still get the chains or the trophies or whatever. Doesn't matter.
You can dislike the Chiefs.
Who's talking about the Chiefs?
Boy, did you see your boy Dante Whitner get loose?
No.
Yeah, we're back to the whole rig cheating thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dropped it with Bro Bible. Yeah.
It doesn't do anything for me.
That dude is like dead set. People typically don't say it out loud.
Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah.
All of those. Listen. If it was really a problem, how many people are in the NFL?
32 teams, 48 or 50 on the roster. So let's just roughly say 1550.
1550 plus staff, right?
Sure.
Coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, support staff, trainers, whatever. Then you've got the board of governors, whatever, the owners, everybody in the league office. Let's conservatively call it 2,000 people.
Okay.
You ever met 2,000 people that keep a secret?
No, I can't. I've met 3.
That's what I mean. If this was a real thing, it wouldn't be 1 or 2 guys every once in a while just be like, hey.
4, 6, 8.
You didn't hear Bubba Smith before he passed away? He said Earl Morrell, his quarterback for the Colts, was in on the fix to get Joe Namath the Super Bowl.
That's fine.
I mean, listen.
You realize he was 6 of 17 with 3 interceptions when he got benched against the Jets. Not that I remember that, but he was 6 of 17 with 3 interceptions before he got benched.
That's pretty bad. Maybe he just had a bad day.
Sure.
Listen, if I had a really bad day in the biggest game of my life,
sure,
it would cross my mind to lie about it.
They're 13-1 and a prohibitive favorite.
Maybe just pay your guys more so they don't have to bet.
And there was a lot more hands-on-y stuff in the sports game back then too.
Okay, but there's a difference between gambling, rigged, shaving points, and league rigged, fixing games. There's a huge difference there.
You and my homie.
There is.
Kentucky better be careful.
You're right.
They're not Nebraska football.
They fixed it so Taylor Swift could win the Super Bowl. My bad.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I mean, the young guys, they fit right in, you know. Sometimes it's trial by error. Sometimes it's, feeding them through a fire hose. But they just pick up, like Mario Buford. I got him playing 3 different positions. He just kind of goes out and he does it, and he gives his effort. Those young guys, they just fit right in. Again, the leadership from Quentin, the leadership from Phelan, the leadership from Ashton, the leadership from the older guys, right? The Omar Browns, it just carries over. And now, Tommy Hills, he's up now, and he knows how to do it because those guys did it before him.
We're back here on a Wednesday. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. That's Coach Coop.
Yeah, he's spot on too. And by the way, Phelan's helping them out.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's what Rule said on Saturday about the weight room.
He does a good job with a lot of the drills. I watched. Was this Thursday or Saturday? This is probably Thursday. I think I like, because Gifford spoke yesterday and he had a lot of it kind of sounded a lot like the coaches and Coop, I think before that said, he's could be one of the best players or is. I was like, ooh, already? One of the best players in college football.
Yeah.
And I told Giff Saturday, I whispered in his ear, I said, I said, the better you are, the smarter you look, or the smarter I look. So you just keep on doing you. And he pushed me and he almost knocked me to the ground. I was like, man, I got to get back in the weight room. He's like, shut up, man. But anyway, like those guys coaching the positions like within the drill is probably my favorite. I said this like about Dvorak last year. Right, where guys were just like stealing reps on the sidelines when it wasn't like their turn. Like those are the kinds of things that you've got to really like. If you're going to be good, you have to be good at those kinds of things as a team because coaches can't be everywhere.
Good,
and that means that the guys are learning too.
Well, and not just coaches can't be everywhere, but it also hits differently when it comes from different people, right? Comes from a coach, it sounds one way. Comes from a peer, sounds another way. But it kind of goes back to something we talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago about the level of trust needed both within your position group and with the coaching staff to take that type of correction from somebody that's basically your same age, right? Like Gifford is the old guy, right? He's 23. He made a point of saying that yesterday. And I was like, bud, wait till you figure out how your body feels when you're 30.
Yeah, right? And he's, and they're playing without, they don't always have the older Buford. They're without Singleton this spring. And so that group is experienced, and it's got some old fellas back there.
A group that is not experienced that we saw a little bit of yesterday as well was the quarterback group, where
quarterbacks. Was that Sue, Shane? Who said that?
That was Sue from that commercial.
Quarterback.
We saw a little bit from all three guys. I think we may have been a little ahead of the curve on this one.
Me and you?
Yeah. Well, mostly you, but
well, that's why people should listen to the show.
They should listen to the show because last week you were impressed with how good Daniel Kalen looked.
Yeah.
You were trying to tell people a little bit that, hey, like keep your mind open on this one.
Well, I just felt like, just to backtrack before that, we talked about you got into the quarterback battles and winning battles. So this was a couple of weeks before that.
Yeah, it's almost a month ago at this point.
And I was like, you're like, well, if it was this guy and it was that guy, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like
we were talking about trust and rule. And
I hadn't seen anything, obviously, but I just felt like Kalen was getting. And listen, let's not act like I haven't coached against the guy. Okay, so there's the personal part, and there's the growth and development part. I've made no bones about this to anybody that asked me about game planning and defending Bellevue West. Like, I feel good.
You feel like you could do it pretty.
I feel
at a pretty high level.
Yeah. Like I feel like we've got a good handle. They're not very good offensively against us. And so I felt like, and I get it. I said, so that's the coaching part, right? You look at his records, 14-8, blew a couple double-digit leads, like stuff like that. Those are the things that we all know.
Yeah.
Right. So we brought that into
this new situation.
Yep. Like even like
100%. Yeah.
I'm like, man, I think they're still trying to figure out what we were doing defensively. Like, that's what I say in my head, right? That's why I was joking about what Coach Rule said. He's like, oh, that offense. And by the way, that was Andy Kendeigh's question.
Yeah. We'll talk at 8:30.
And I'm like, okay, like it's fine. But then I know people can still. So then I go back to coach, but not against him. I'm just watching.
Evaluation.
So now I'm looking at his personality traits. Super good natured. He and Rayola spent a lot of time together, so I think he's comfortable.
Seems to really connect with other guys.
And when you put guys in situations like that and they like their environment and they can thrive, you can get different sorts of outcomes from them. So then I watched them last week. And weren't a lot of people there. A couple of our guys there because they like, coaches, it's cool. And I looked at one of our guys. I said this last week on air. I looked at one of our guys and I said, this doesn't even look like the same.
Who is that?
This doesn't even look like the same guy.
Yeah.
So then it had my attention. So then I just watched him like the whole time. And I text my buddy and I said, man, I know I'm gonna be the one saying this, but this dude is outstanding today. But it was just one day, right? So then you get a couple of other cracks at it. And this is on the heels. So him performing well is after we said last week, don't think that the coaches are playing possum when they don't have a definitive answer about the quarterback spot. Because in a situation like this, do you remember this? Where you're not burying guys to the ground. It's not super live. They're in a green jersey. Remember, Coach Rule himself said you never really know until you know about quarterbacks
in a game
and real game situations. Yep. This could be a battle. And it's not a slight at Kalen saying, well, when live bullets start flying, it'll be different. Because
we don't know.
Dylan's afforded the same luxuries too.
Yeah.
Right? So they're in the same. However it's being evaluated, it's the same. Whether you think it's advantageous to one or not, or you want to wait until it really all that aside, what they're all going through is the same right now.
Now, different situations can play better or worse to other guys' skill sets, right?
100%. That's a good point.
So they might be in the same situation.
Good. That's a good point.
But one guy might be more comfortable with live bullets. One guy might be more comfortable.
Some guys prefer. Yeah, wait till we're in a game. See, right? That's the phrase.
Yeah. Some guy, basketball, some guys really comfortable shooting off a rack. Some guys really comfortable shooting off the dribble. Some guys strictly catch and shoot, right?
That's a good point.
Certain situations lend themselves to different skill sets. So, we could be looking at, hey, for whatever reason, this particular thing we're seeing right now is right up Daniel Kalen's alley. And so he's going to look great. And maybe when we move into more contact, whatever, maybe, I don't know. Right. But that's, again, what goes to what Coach Rule said.
And I'm looking at more than just is a ball complete, like his footwork moving. He was climbing the pocket on Thursday. I thought he was out. He was outstanding.
Climbing the pocket is one of the most underrated skills.
He was moving to his left. He was moving to his right. And his footwork is legit.
Well,
and that matters at this level, because I think what happens, and I broke this down one time with Adrian Martinez, why his completion percentage, and I think at one point it was like at 66 or 65%. I'm like, he could tick up about 3 percentage points if he would just set his feet in intermediate passes. Because what quarterbacks have a tendency to do is they flick it or they arm it because they feel like they don't really need the footwork for
a shorter pass.
For the passes under 10 yards. And he was much better with deep balls than he was with the intermediate stuff. And I'm like,
take your time.
That's footwork.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's one thing that Kalen is really, really good at. Like, you can tell
it's consistency in the footwork.
He's played this position a long time.
Out of breath, Brian. Hold on. We will get to you as soon as we come back from break here. We'll get more into
quarterbacks
as well.
A lot of footage.
A lot of video. If you're out there on Twitter, I retweeted some on my timeline yesterday as well. If you're looking for some video evidence of what we've been talking about here, we will get back into that. We will talk to Out of Breath Brian as we wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We'll be back. Christopherson.
There's so much leadership and maturity.
Sports Sports Radio. Here is Husker 20. We will be back. Here is Brian Christopherson.
There's so much leadership and maturity with regard, and here's what you can do better. And I say, that's 5 minutes. That's it.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I think Coach Rule's genius, right? Splitting up the teams 3 ways. They all get about the same amount of reps. So it's not much managing going on. It's just a lot of reps, and those guys just working. The young guys, inexperienced guys, you really only get better at football playing football. So it's been good so far. They've been working. You can't hide. So
wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. As the very wise man, Coach Coop, said, you only really get better at playing football by playing football.
Yeah, it's a lot of things going on, man. It's a busy. I love that. I love the structure. I love the competitiveness. I love the multiple reps. You were getting yesterday people filming like all 3 quarterbacks and getting that out on Twitter within a matter of minutes.
Yep.
But they got to see some team stuff, so it was like, oh, let's stick around. So everybody, folks with Zapruder the film, and if you're a cynic, you use it as a negative. If you're a fan, you drink up, and now we're comparing and contrasting quarterbacks.
I don't know what that makes me, because I did spend a lot of time watching those clips.
Zapruder that thing?
I might have slow-moed a little bit.
Yeah, what'd you come up with?
I was really, really impressed with DK's ball placement.
Yeah, isn't that something? Like that's good that you. I didn't even think about that, to be honest. But where guys catch. That's the difference between accuracy and
precision.
Precision.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the difference between, in my mind, between completion percentage and accuracy,
and being able to run after the catch too.
Because there was one, and this is again not hating on Dylan at all. There was one where a guy's coming across the middle. It's behind him. He gets tackled. That's probably needs to be 6. Like if that's in front of him, probably pay dirt, right? That we saw, and I got to give credit to I'll have to find it on Twitter. There's the guy that was putting out the clips, but it was a little bit of that where it looked like just about every ball that I saw, and again, very small sample sizes, but I was really impressed with where Kalen was able to place the ball in terms of where the defense was, where the receivers were, and not making them adjust to his ball.
How much did you pay attention to like receivers?
Oh, a lot.
Did you?
Yeah, I was. Now I couldn't tell as well who was who, so that matters too. I know on Twitter I saw yesterday that Kalen was with the better group of receivers. So I don't know that part of it. That's part of it. I get that chemistry.
No, I don't know because I think they rotate so much.
Yeah, so I don't know either. I'm just going based on a couple tweets that I saw on who was on what team. So I do recognize that that's a factor. Chemistry, comfortability.
Do you know who 18 is?
Lloyd's 19, right? I don't know who 18 is.
That's Nair.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's your guy.
Yeah.
That's your guy. Speaking of our guy, let's get to our guy out of breath. Brian here wants to talk about Coach's Clinic, Bill Belichick being in town. B, what's going on, man?
Oh, before I get on Belichick there, Ravi,
what's up?
Since I pay attention to y'all in all media form, let me turn my attention to Thomas Kuchera. Watch what you type in online, okay?
What did TK do?
Well, I'm just looking at what he's saying online. Talking about don't say anything disparaging. Hey, you can always pick up your phone and call in, buddy.
On the comments section.
Yeah, you can call in anytime you want to. All right. Otherwise, just sit on there and watch the YouTube channel and be quiet and eat your Hurrdat donut. Okay?
TK is a great show contributor. You guys are funny on that thing, boy. I tell you. Yeah, it gets nasty.
The YouTube comments get a little loose.
I'm messing around with it. But no, hey, I'm messing around. Hey, I just before I start off, go there, man. Did you see that last night? What was up?
Hey,
what drink I was drinking?
Hey, listen, start to finish. I told Ravi the minute he hit those first 2 threes early, I knew the Lakers were in trouble. And he's talking the whole way back down the court.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like,
he needed to go over the river and hit one of them blackjack tables last night. He probably would have been on. He probably would have been on fire last night.
He's on fire.
That's what I think. And the good thing about that game is we don't have any new Snitchy Russell news. Thank God. No landing in nobody's lap. Okay. Well, thank God I don't want to see him on the sideline with, the spokesperson for Planet Fitness. Shoot, I go to 24-hour fitness, something like that. Planet Fitness is closed. I don't know what type of planet that is. It's only open for part of the day. Anyway, but hey, I just called to say hey, this is gonna make you mad, Ravi.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you can hate Audemars you want to, but he left us with a good head coach. Let's hear it for Trev. That's right. Let's hear it for Trev.
I've got an argument I can make that Trev fell ass backwards into Matt Rule.
But here we go.
I can make that argument. If you want me to.
You can make that argument, but hey, record books don't lie, just like it don't lie about the worst football coach in Nebraska history. Never going to change. Name always going to be there. Same thing with Trev. His name is going to be attached. Did you hire Matt Rule? Yes, I did, Robbie. And you can't take that away from him. He hired him. Hate him all you want to. Throw him in the same bucket as you throw them Hurley brothers. But I'm there with you.
I will. Right? I will. I'll put him. They're in the same bucket.
I can't stand a Hurley.
Mike Wilbon's in that bucket now for me too. Like it's just the whole. I call it my Trev list.
But main reason I actually finally feel. I said this to Damon years ago when our kids was little. I finally feel like somebody made a decision down there, right? They got a good coach. Because everything I'm seeing down there reminds me of the 80s. I always wonder what happened to allowing players to come, join the football team and participate in track. Because one of my vivid memories of a freshman who was on the kickoff return team, went to Central. They called him End Zone Jones, and all season he was in that freshman year. He was on the track team. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like what we got going on down. I feel very comfortable. Don't lose them, Damon. If you see anybody, you know them people. So I'm holding you responsible. Them is your buddies down there. All right, your buddies. Blood, sweat, and tears. You see them getting out of line. I don't care about who's selling beef jerky. I just want to go. I just want to go to the bowl game. That's it, fellas.
All right, buddy. I'll keep our former guys in line.
Brian, we appreciate the call.
I don't think they've been.
That's an all-timer from Brian right there.
I don't think they've been too bad on him.
Who?
Former guys. I think they generally like him.
Who?
Coach Rule.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Shane, you in a good mood or what?
You guys going?
I did. I can't. I'm going back to this. I'm going back to this quarterback thing because now. So we tried to set the stage early.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one guy or another because full disclosure, like if I wanted to lack objectivity, I'm much closer to the Rayolas than I am to Harburg or to Kalen.
Yeah.
Right. So I would
probably lean that way.
Yeah. I don't lean anyway. So I don't say anything bad about Dylan or Harburg or Pro Kalen. I just talk about what I see because I know at the end of the day what it ultimately boils down to. The same things we talked about before spring ball even started. Command of the huddle and making sure that in crunch time you're evolving.
Yeah.
Like those are going to be the things that get the job done because arm talent is arm talent and throwing balls on air or in light teamwork is a whole nother thing.
That's kind of the bare minimum at this point.
Then when live ammo is flying.
We'll continue to talk about this, but I got to give TK some time. I think he's responding to the diss track by out of breath Brian there. So we got TK on the line now as well. What's up, buddy?
Good morning, fellas.
How you doing?
TK, what's up? What's up, bud?
Good morning, Brian. I just want to inform you that I was talking about Ravi disparaging greatness. If you read all my comments, you would understand that.
Which I didn't even say anything this morning.
You seem very hurt right now.
TK, I'm on the attack Ravi trade. So whatever we could do, I'm still mad about his Hurley take. So let's. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. Hey, Brian is wild.
It's just normally a showly occurrence.
Yeah, no, it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just trying to open people's minds to other options. That's all.
Hey, TK, who's your? Let's go real rapid fire, real quick. Okay. Who's your pick to win the quarterback job?
Rayola.
Who's your pick to win the running back job?
I know this one.
Evan.
Give me the top 3 wide receivers.
Banks, Lloyd. Let's go. Doss.
Okay. Give me the corner. Give me the other starting corner.
Fly Hill.
Okay.
Hill and Hill. The law firm.
TK's on record. TK, good stuff, man. I'll keep Brian off your scent. Go ahead, buddy.
Evans is the guard.
Okay.
And
I really like him.
Lulla.
Okay.
If big time future predictions, Evans is the first team all Big Ten O lineman for Nebraska in the next 2 years.
Oh, I kind of like that. Let me validate TK here in a second. TK, thanks for your
Appreciate call, TK.
So I was talking to a guy that's played the position at a high level, multiple years in the NFL.
Okay.
He's a huge Evans fan.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Every offensive lineman I've talked to
thinks that he is like the center of the future.
Every offensive lineman I've talked to.
And Dom is tough.
Loves Justin Evans.
God, he's just so.
Every offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Without fail. And
but I think he's going to be a center.
Long term?
I think
that was the plan, but Ben Scott came back for an extra year.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but long term, I think you're right. Yeah. They're kind of doing a little
They
Philadelphia
need
Eagles.
Need a little depth guard, center guard, but he's not. Nothing he said was too crazy.
Coming up next, we got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
There's so much leadership and maturity with regards to special teams on our team that the the new enrollees are, even if they're really good and they're coming in, and a lot of them are like a lot of those young defensive players, they're coming in like and I tell them, I say, guys, if you come into my office and we talk special teams, I tell them 5 minutes, and sometimes it's 5 or 6, but I'm not going to give them a lecture on life. I'm going to come in and say, here's your reps, here's what you did in practice today, and here's what you can do better. And I say, that's 5 minutes. That's it.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on the Pillar Exterior stage. Brian Christopherson joins us now from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, bud?
Not much. I'd like to do that with a few people sometimes. Just be like, you got 5 minutes, and that's it. 5 to 6 minutes.
Are you trying to give us a little hint here?
Yeah,
BC, or what's going on, bud?
We'll try to maximize here, buddy.
No. That's not a hint to you guys. That's to other people, not you guys. I'm glad to be here.
Bruntsy in the car when he's driving and you're trying to type and do some work. You got 5 minutes, Brunts.
You got 5 minutes to complain.
5 minutes
about the A's moving to Sacramento.
I got to push this
and then
story
we got to
up.
move on.
And Bruntsy's like, well, you guys keep seeing the Dodgers in this series. It'll only take 5 minutes to talk about the runs scored.
Twins are gonna be eliminated by tax day at this pace. It's not going too hot, but yeah, no, that was not aimed at you guys. Maybe it was Brunt. It was Brunt. That was you're on the right track.
It was tough.
But your Twins can't score.
No, they lost the one guy who's clutch in Royce Lewis for 2 months, and there you go. So I won't bore people with Twins baseball talk, but yeah, you can expect about 1 to 2 runs per game. They got to 3 yesterday, which they decided to score after a 6-0. So congrats on the sweep. I'll in advance. I'll say that.
I mean, the good news is that's a pretty mediocre division. So you've got some opportunity.
And I picked them to win it too. So I'm a total genius, PC.
My pick to win it before it began was the Tigers, and I'll stick with that. They were trending up last year. We'll see how it goes. But
I just don't think the Guardians can play softball, which they may have to if they can't keep that pitching staff healthy.
No, I don't think Cleveland's going to be the team at the end. Royals will fall off a bit, but it's promising what they're doing for all the KC fans out there, I would say.
Yeah, that's like 5 in a row, right?
Yeah, they got a little something going over there. Tigers, though, are I think going to be like the surprise team, and they're going to win a bad division. Let's put it that way.
We love winning a bad division. We would have loved to win some bad divisions as Nebraska football the last few years, but listen,
sure.
It's harder than it looks. Harder than it looks, BC. Let's hop into the little bit of practice that we were able to see yesterday. We got to hear from Coach Cooper, Coach Foley, and a few players as well. Out of the live teamwork that we got to see, which was a nice little treat for us, was there anything that stood out to you?
Nothing shocked me. No. Danny had that nice drive in front of everybody, which I think was actually good for the public dialogue in a way, because it just reminded everybody, there's a competition going on over there. You can assume what's going to happen and perhaps be right on that. But I have always liked what Daniel Kaelin's made of and just how he handles himself. And I liked last week when he was up front and, he was kind of posed this question about sort of being an underdog, or, that view that maybe he's the underdog in this situation. And he was not really accepting of that premise at all, that he's an underdog. And I mean, I would guess I wouldn't expect any less from a competitor, but I just like the way he handled that question. Well, I'm not saying it was a bad question, but I like the way he took it and answered it and framed it in the way that he's looking at it. And, he threw some nice balls yesterday, so that was good to see. I think Jalen Lloyd is a guy who kind of just pops out to me like he's going to be around somehow, some way, when stuff matters. You saw even on the drill we saw. It says this is how limited we are. I know Damon's seen a lot more, but where it wasn't the best for Raiola on that one particular 11 on 11. I think they're like 1 of 5 or something. But you could see even within that Raiola, Jalen Lloyd sort of connection and some chemistry there. And he made a real nice play on a ball that was actually behind him, caught it, still was on the move, and got like 5 extra yards out of it. I think he's a guy who last year he had those explosive plays, and he really challenged himself based off the interview he had with us at the end. Like, I'm going to be a guy who's more of an every down player this year. I'm going to be that guy who learns all the moving parts and can put myself on the field more than like 18 to 20 plays. And I think he's trending in a good direction.
Brian, do we give Daniel Kaelin enough credit for being a competitor when you think of the fact that this is a guy that willingly walked into a situation?
Oh, it was bad from the jump, right? It was
Yes.
Didn't want him, then they got him. Then it was, cool, resolve. Then it's, you're not the guy. We got our guy. Like,
and he had options. He had places he could have. I mean, Michigan State wanted him. He had places he could have gone. And he walked into a situation knowing full well that at his position, where only one guy gets to play, he was going up against, at least in the recruiting era, the best prospect Nebraska's ever landed. Like, do we give enough credit for that? Because that's when you put it in that context, it's kind of impressive.
I don't know if it is. I don't know if people do or don't, but he's got a great head on his shoulders. It was clear, like, even before all that happened. Like, if he had made the decision to go elsewhere, people would have understood, I think, given the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he even that, he didn't like talk it out publicly that week, when the Raiola stuff was changing. He kind of waited. There was reports, and I think there was truth to it, that there was maybe consideration of him taking a peek elsewhere, but never happened. He stuck around, and if you remember, he put out a video of him just throwing to like his guys, like Fedoni and some guys were catching passes from him, and there was a GBR attached to it. It's like that was his announcement, like I'm sticking here. There wasn't more fanfare than that. So I think people sort of like that Nebraskan way of handling it, I guess. And he has a great connection with a lot of these young receivers too, because remember, he was that guy in the class for 5 to 6 months who was sort of the face of it at QB. And I remember doing an interview in December before all the QB shuffle happened with Ja'Cory Barney, and he was talking about Danny Dimes and how, like, they have this connection together and all this and that. And it kind of made me smile the other day when we're watching that drill and all the cameras are rolling, and he hits Barney for that big, like, 30, 35-yard gain, just a play in practice. But those are two guys who know each other well through talking it out leading into their time as Huskers. And he has a lot of guys like that who really respect him. And so that's, that can't hurt your cause when you go out on the field and those guys know what you're about.
Maybe this is more my personal vantage point, but this reminds me of like the draft, where you get the guy that doesn't have a ton of starts or something like that versus the fourth year guy. And over time, you just have time to be critiqued up until the draft, right? See, we didn't know a ton about Dylan because we didn't see him in like a lot of live game action and stuff. There's the intrigue. We knew the rankings. We knew the family lineage. So there's this, like the girl in the sunglasses, right? She's got to be super looking, because you can't, man, what's under there?
You
right?
fill in the unknowns with the best case scenario.
With Danny, and this is even me personally, like, because I know things that I've said, hey, just get them into the fourth quarter. I don't think they can make plays, or I don't love this offense, or people make a lot of excuses. They're not as good as people. Like, these are all things that I've said, right? So I have to be patient to watch this thing unfold without making any sweeping generalizations either way, because it's still not really real football yet until they turn guys loose and they take jerseys off. Because the coach rules comment sticks in my head week 3 coming back, or 4 with Harburg's first start, and it was like, the thing about quarterbacks, you never really know until they're in real games. So it's forced me to like take a couple of steps back and take it for what it is, because it would be easy for me to just gravitate towards Dylan because I'm significantly closer to those guys, but I have to continue to just try to remain objective, knowing and unknow what I've already seen, because I know people can get better. You know what I mean? It's good practice for me too.
No, that's a good way to look at it. I mean, he's got the way I look at it with Daniel is, I mean, he's got a good toolbox of traits, you know, that you want in the position, but mostly I think it's that head on his shoulders where you can see a guy who you could imagine, as you give him some time in a system, is going to have a quick blinker, as Mario Verduzco used to say, you know, like a guy who can process stuff fast and can see defenses as he gets more time working with specific coaches in a specific scheme here in Lincoln. So, yeah, I mean, it's just good to me that, you know, yesterday he had a nice day. That's all it is. It was a nice day while people happen to be watching for the half hour or whatever media were in there. And so it got a little more buzz around him. And I don't think that's the worst thing. It's not to say like he's ahead now or anything like that. I think people understand all that. And Raiola is still Raiola in this discussion. I think most people would say that. But it's good that people were at least reminded, like, okay, these other guys, what are they doing over here? That's a nice ball. You know, they kind of look up and they nod their head to it. And you want to have depth at this position, whoever wins this job, because as you guys know, nowadays, rarely are you going to make it through. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's tough to make it through with just one guy or even two guys. We've often watched this team down to its third guy. So all these guys got to be ready, as Rule has said, to be the guy who could get called on and by the end of spring. And I thought it was telling on Saturday. I don't think Rule would say this just to say this, that he was asked if he likes the pace they're on or they're where they expected. And he actually said they're ahead of that pace. And so people can call that hype or whatever, but that's what the head coach said. So I think they've liked how the QBs have gotten out of the blocks, all considered, for some young guys, and how they fit in and just attack things, and you just keep going.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we're kind of going position by position on the show here and talking our way through those. Yesterday, we did running backs. If you had to place a bet on who ends up with the most rushing yards for this Nebraska team, A, who would that be? And B, is that number over or under 600 yards?
It's your star crunches against my zebra cakes, BC. No, I'm going oatmeal cream pies. Are you a star crunch guy?
I used to be star crunch guy.
Cosmic brownie.
I was say you kind of strike me as a cosmic brownie guy, if I'm being honest.
No, I'm a Swiss rolls guy.
All right. Your Swiss rolls against my oatmeal cream pies. What do we got here for?
I love oatmeal cream pies too. That's close. But that's a
kids turn off the radio. They're kind of like crack.
Ask Nick Saban. He had 2 a day. He did all right with that. I think. Oh man, that's a hard question. This is such a hard question because, like, what's Gabe's situation? I don't really know fully. Like, when he pops back from that, if he pops back from that, when he does, can he be a running back who has that first year where he goes all the way through? If that were the case, and you told me all things are equal, I would take Gabe Irvin. I haven't seen that with my own eyes yet, and so I kind of by default go down the list. And I probably run into Emmett Johnson. I mean, at this point,
he's got such a great personality.
Emmett, yeah, he does. He's a dude who, there are certain guys you talk to throughout the recruiting process, and they've had that attitude, like, I know what everybody else's expectation is of me, but forget that, you know, like I know what I can do. I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to. And he kind of has that way about him. And it, you know, if you go back to early August, he was 4th or 5th probably on the depth chart. But I thought when he did get in there, he showed some flashes. And then I think after the season, there was that tendency, and maybe there still is, to like, okay, we saw some things, but maybe that's the ceiling now on him. We think we've seen it. There's some of that going on. And he's got that chance now to show, no, there's more. It goes higher. And it's wide open for him given the situation. So it's a tough question though. and yes, I will say just above 600, but I wouldn't say much.
Is that the right number?
That's the important question is like, is the number close to make someone think? And I think it's absolutely a good number.
BC, I'm going to flip over to the defense because I feel like Coach Coop, they kind of sound the same. You know, he was happy that Coach White came back, and he talked about the ability to be able to elevate his career and his family situation. It sounds like a guy that has heard those talks amongst the coaching staff before about getting other positions, right? He sounded like Coach Rule talking about Tony White's situation. How much do you think, and reverence may be too strong of a word, but like the built-in camaraderie on that side of the ball sees the immediate trickle down to the players? Because it seems like there's such a connected group, even the youngins and the oldins, but it may start with how the coaches feel about one another.
Now that, to me, there was a question earlier about do we not talk about this enough? Here's something we don't maybe talk about enough that's undersold. It's that how that crew, that defensive coaching staff, linked together as fast as they did, and like the jump they made last year, sometimes when you really step back from it, I know we want to always say they haven't arrived and all that, they can be better. They can. But man, that was a significant jump for year one in the defense. And to do it with, when you consider what some would say are obstacles of a new guy coming in that doesn't really know everybody else, and Tony White.
You didn't get Dvorak till late, remember, because he had to finish.
Yep, absolutely. That didn't come in until like January or whatever. And so, I mean, to hit the ground as they did, and it was even like last spring, you already sensed like this is kind of working, I think. Like you didn't want to say it out loud too confidently, but you felt like they just meshed and their personalities worked well together. And I think it's because Tony White, from everything we hear, is just so has one of the greatest qualities that the best leaders do, and that's the ability to listen and not just want to hear his voice like fill the room. And that's what those guys will always say in interviews when they get asked multiple questions about Tony White, is how he listens and how he takes it in, what their information, and there's that give and take back and forth. And I just feel like it's a room where guys quickly learned everybody's going to be heard. You're going to be, you've got an idea, let's hear it. And he might run with it. And I remember there was some game last year where they did something pretty successful on the back end, or it was something up front they did, and it was actually a suggestion from Evan Cooper. And, Tony White was the first to highlight that, like the next week in the media thing. So I just think they've got that kind of bond where, okay, what do you got, guys? And they're not comparing paychecks or who's got this title or anything like that. And that's always a good thing.
BC, I kind of made an assumption on that back end when they brought Bly Hill in that he was more of a developmental guy. Maybe it's because where he came from. Maybe it's because of the way he was talked about. A lot of raw skills and length and athleticism. But do you think we're headed toward a situation where he could quite possibly be the starting corner opposite Tommy?
I think he's in the mix. I think it's going to be a good fight still for a while, where you could throw like 4 names out there. But yeah, when the first time you see him, and when people go to the spring game, just look at the DBs and you'll find some dudes with length, but there's just something about him where you're like, man, he looks long. He looks long to me, and he just he has those traits where you're like, that looks how you want him to. And so I think he's right there, and I think he jumped right in like the others. A nice thing for him, and Evan Cooper mentioned this the other day, is he's sort of in the same boat as all those other guys, like age-wise, so they're like 18, 19 years old. So yes, he wasn't here last year, and it was sort of a different path in Nebraska, but I think he's quickly got past that, where he's now part of the team, and basically the same as like some guys like Jeremiah Charles and those guys who have been around a year. It's like, okay, you had kind of a year of experience in college football in different ways. Now what can you do with it as you keep learning things? But
right on
be a good contest.
Right on cue, BC. Take a listen to this, and what were your takeaways from this? Shane, clip 3.
I mean, so for a guy who barely played football in high school, and his athletic traits are well documented, but the thing you wouldn't notice about him if you didn't know him is he's very competitive. He's really smart, and he's also really tough. So it's just a natural fit for him at DB. I'm not saying the receivers aren't tough, but it's just a natural fit with him, and he's just working at it.
It's weird, BC. He says this a lot. He almost always starts with tough, and somehow he weaves in smart, whether he's talking about Gifford, what Tommy Hill needed to do to elevate his game last year.
Don't forget about competitive. That almost makes it in there every time, too.
And I remember Coach White saying, he was at the high school, and he said, you got to have 3 things if you want to play here. You have to be able to tackle. You need toughness. You have to be smart, and you need to be competitive. It's crazy how when I hear these coaches, even when they're talking about players' traits, they still all sound like each other, don't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been around each other so long and at each other's hip on some cases that I guess that sort of happens. It's like how married people start to talk the same sometimes. But it's a good thing to have, and I think that quote was about Jeremiah Charles.
It was.
And Jeremiah. I know everybody saw what he can do as a freak, jumping through the gym and the dunk contest and stuff like that. But his recruitment story is fascinating. I mean, he was that guy who was not like the main guy at that school being recruited. That was Smith Flores. They're in the gym, and this is like the ultimate story of like how they do stuff sometimes. And Rule's like, well, who's this dude, And like Cooper goes into the hallway and starts looking at film on him, like in the high school hallway, where they're selling like caramel apple suckers and stuff like that. And they decide in like 10 to 15 minutes, like, yep, this is this kind of dude we want. And then he's part of it. And the more I listened, I had a coach down there at that high school who was pretty good with me during that process. And he said, this is a dude. And he didn't want to knock the other player, Smith Flores, who could do fine at Nebraska. But he's like, Jeremiah, I'm telling you, man, this guy, everybody's acting like he's raw or like he just stepped off and doesn't know, he's just getting into football. He's like, that's the exciting part. Like, he is unbelievable with like some of his measurables and things he can do. If you get him in the right system with people who know how to develop, he's going to thrive because he's just that kind of athlete. He's like, you don't see him that often. And I think he will be heard from sooner than later, Jeremiah Charles. So when you ask like who's going to be that starting corner, man, it's tough because like I think that contest is gonna be under the heat lamp all the way through August because there's some interesting young options there. It's going to be fascinating no matter who it is, though, whoever they trot out there, because people will have heard a lot about them and be kind of excited about whoever that player is.
And it's cool too because they've all taken their turns being cooked by the offense, so you at least know
that
they're.
Too.
I mean, some guys on the other end too we see a lot of guys making plays for how good the secondary is going to be.
Next week we should talk about those guys who kind of like are in their 3rd or 4th year that people talk over, but now they're still going to be really important, and like Malcolm Hartzog and your
Deshaun Singleton.
Yes. Those guys. That would be a good segment in itself. So we'll have to do that sometime.
You got it, BC.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
That's a huge emphasis for us as a football team, as a defense. Drills, we're drilling it. We're drilling, taking the ball away. We're being deliberate about it in practice, talking about it before we take the field every down. So it's just really just putting our mind to, hey, we got to punch it out every chance we can get.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube from the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, what's going on?
Going on, boys? DB, wonderful to see you in the flesh yesterday. Congratulations to Caleb, one of our Scholar Athlete Award winners yesterday. That was fantastic.
I appreciate that, AK. You kept it light with your sense of humor, so that's always fun. But I was saying this to BC, and I kind of said this to you in private because I trust you, but I was like, shoot, I just got to come clean and say this out loud. Like, with what's going on at practice these last couple of weeks with the quarterback play, it's forced me as an individual to put my own previous thoughts on pause, right? Like, how many people do you think that have been watching high school football over the last couple of years are reluctant to or are ready to put their previous thoughts on pause?
Well, here's the thing. Like, you see so much more of practice than we do. We see such a limited window of practice. But what I saw yesterday and what I saw a couple weeks ago certainly tells me that this is a bona fide competition, right? I mean, Danny Kalen yesterday was terrific in a very limited time. We were able to see him work team. And it was funny because, normally we don't get the peek inside behind the curtain during team, offense versus defense when they're actually playing football. We usually just, when the media, you'll usually get subjected to stretching, some bag work, and that's about it. Maybe some simple routes. But yesterday it was 11 on 11, and each guy got to run their offense on a drive. Heinrich went for Harburg went first, and Danny went second, and Raiola went third. And I'll tell you, Danny Kalen ran his group like a champ, and boom, 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 touchdown, and it was really impressive to see. And I think what, if nothing else, it had me leaving Lincoln yesterday like, yeah, this is going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a fun competition. It's going to make everybody better. And Danny Kalen fit right in yesterday. I'm telling you that much.
All I know is I just keep telling myself, okay, regardless of what I preconceived notions or knowledge, I just want to see like real time live with things on the line, right? Like, because for me, that's what it is. Because talent was never really the issue. I told you, I go back and I look at our statistics and what we would do defensively, and I'm like, this is going to be interesting how this translates. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And that's going to be the interesting part. Like, there's a difference between going 7-on-7 and then even teams, because, you're not hitting the quarter. You're not bringing the quarterback to the ground, So, they're showing very simple looks, obviously, right? They're not going to blitz and try to, really go after the QB like they would in game situations. So I think that's where all this stuff is really intriguing. Obviously, Raiola can throw them. I mean, he's got such a fluid motion. And
hey, how about his poise? Like, how about how he carries himself?
Yes, he just carries himself like a champ on the field. And where he was off on a few throws during the very limited sample size that the media saw yesterday. But then again, you could tell, and we've seen enough of him to know that this guy's got a rocket of an arm and he can make throws that a lot of guys can't. And again, this is where, I know it's a process and it's April, but man, I can't wait to see what these guys are like when they're under duress and when this stuff is real. And that's where, try not to, but you do get a window to the future. You do see some basic tenets of what these kids can do. And that's what makes this time of year really exciting for Husker fans, because, there's promise and there's talent. And I'll tell you what else, DB, I walked away. Jamal Banks is a player.
No.
Like, you walk away from watching it and you say, oh, this guy he is legit. Banks he is a guy, no question.
We're talking to Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, do you think that the media was allowed to see the live sessions yesterday to come away exactly with the sentiment that you had?
That's a good question.
Of, hey, this actually is a competition.
That's
like,
a good
is
question.
Rule that galaxy brained where he's like, hey, people need to see that this isn't just the Dylan Raiola show?
Hey, that's funny he said that, because he's got me thinking now.
Yeah, I think it's 100%.
How did he tell you guys you could stay? Or did he just, nobody said any? Like, how'd that happen?
So, it was funny because, they corral us, and we only get 3 open periods the entire spring. So we're trying to get as much video. I've got a camera on my shoulder. I'm ready to sprint to whatever. It's like an Easter egg hunt, You get into this big space, and you're like, where do I go first? Your head's on a swivel, and you're like, where are the quarterbacks? What are they doing? And then you're kind of process, and you're like, holy cow, they're doing team. And so I try to sprint to the far end to have the play come to me. I mean, that's what I'm thinking as a guy that's been in the biz a little bit. And so but at first, Seamus had opened the door, and then the security guy goes, no, we're not ready. We're not ready. And Seamus goes, get back. Like one of those pure Seamus moments. Yesterday was fantastic. Seamus is a sports information director, one of the sports info people at Nebraska. So that is an interesting little give and take. And then like 30 seconds later, we get the call from security. Yeah, it's okay. Come on in, guys. Come on in. It was like, okay, well, we just did a little shuffle. So then we sprint the position. And then in between, after the little team session, Coach Rule was talking to, I think, Fan, and Sean and I'm nearby on the sidelines, just a little, give and take. And Seamus walks by and Rule goes, Seamus, why did you let these guys in during tea? What the hell are you thinking? And he's just giving Seamus, if anybody knows Seamus, he's just giving them grief, right? And Rule's like, no, it's fine, I'm fine. That little give and take was like, okay, I think this was, like, Matt Rule knows what's going on. He knows what's going on in every little nook and cranny, I think, in his program. And I think that is a very an interesting way to kind of give a peek and to give the media a little bit more, because like I said, normally it's stretching, it's bag work, it's, little footwork drills, which isn't really, video friendly, Yesterday was video friendly. It was actual football for the first 10 minutes. I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is gold for what we do. And I do think part of it was like, hey, let's show these guys what these kids are all about, and that this isn't just a one-man show. And that's what I left Lincoln thinking yesterday. I'm like, wow, this is going to be a competition. Certainly is.
AK, as you obviously saw some live stuff, you saw the quarterbacks, but was there another position group? You mentioned Jamal Banks as a guy you came away impressed with, but on the defensive side of the ball, anything that jumped out to you? I know it's a little bit different. We talk a lot about offense because we feel like we know more about the defense, and the offense is kind of more of the unknown at this point. But was there anything on the defensive side of the ball you saw that jumped out at you?
Well, I just think it is striking to look at Nash Hutmaker's, like, his physique and the way he moves. And I know that they're kind of keeping the reins on him, because they want to kind of give him a break physically after his wrestling season. But guys, it is a unbelievable transformation to see what that guy did. And I know that we've gotten a peek into it with that 3-point documentary that they've done, which is they do a really nice job with it that you can watch on YouTube that Nebraska football put out. But Nash has really remade his body, and it's just going to help him on the football field. That's a striking deal with him. And then, I think, Gifford is one of the standouts. It was interesting to hear Evan Cooper call him one of the best players in the country yesterday. And he's a guy that's going to be really pivotal for this team, especially on defense. And what a boom it is to have Tony White back for a second season, because I think everybody's going to play at a higher level and think less, act more, and that's going to be the key for that defense.
Andy, it's funny you bring up Nash, because I'm watching that Chasing 3, YouTube series that they're doing. And one of my first takeaways was Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher might be the skinniest 300-pounders I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll tell you, light on their feet, and as long as they keep their strength, that's just going to help them move. That quickness is so important in the trenches, and I think, Nash especially, man, he's done a nice job in doing what he's done in the offseason. He looks terrific. He looks like he's ready to go right now.
It's Andy Kendeigh, KETV. AK, we appreciate it as always.
Thanks, boys. Have a good week, fellas.
Thanks, AK.
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio to wrap up hour number 2. We'll dive in a little bit more to see maybe just how galaxy-brained that Matt Rule really is.
That's an interesting question when you said that. That's a really interesting question.
All of this. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
So when you first, at least in my experience, when you first learn the defense, you spend most of the time trying to remember what to do. And then as the season goes, you know what to do, and now you can focus on what the offense is trying to do. So I can't really do step 3 and 4 if I can't fully grasp step 1. So they need to know it at a level where they can teach it. And defense is all reactionary, so they need to know it and be able to react within the first blink of the snap. So I think just knowing the defense and putting ourselves in the position and also knowing the offense will help us.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and we're brought to you by the Omaha Supernovas. The Supernovas return to action on Saturday in Atlanta against the Vibe. Make sure you go to supernovas.com. You can figure out how to watch, follow along as well. And then they will be back in town the following Saturday, April 20th, here at the CHI Health Center. Make sure you go to supernovas.com to get your tickets, grab some merch, and get all the info you need about Omaha's professional volleyball team. That's supernovas.com. Wanted to follow up with that question that I asked Andy Kendeigh there, because sometimes, you tell me a lot how calculated Coach Rule is. You tell me a lot about how
even from video that's released he's very he doesn't miss a thing.
He is very calculated. He's very in tune with kind of everything that's happening within his program. And so I have that on one side of my brain. On the other side of my brain, I have this fact that everybody, and I mean everybody's takeaway from practice yesterday was, oh man, Daniel Cannon looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a real competition?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a real thing? And we've heard them make a conscious effort up to this point to make sure anytime somebody asks a question about quarterbacks or about Raiola, all the quarterbacks get brought up. Harburg, Kalen, Raiola. I'm not sure that I've heard an answer, even when specifically asked about Raiola, in which all 3 quarterbacks, or at least both freshman quarterbacks, were not invoked in the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that in my brain. And then I see yesterday that,
I'll do you one more.
Yeah.
So jogging off the field on Thursday, one of the defensive coaches is like, man, I think we got a couple of fellas.
Mm-hmm.
I think 12 and 15. I think we got a few.
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, okay.
It's not a comment they have to make publicly.
Yeah. Nope.
In front of people.
Not at all.
And so all of a sudden, we get this out of the ordinary.
And maybe they know it'll be good for Dylan too, ultimately. I don't know. There's a lot. Go ahead. Finish.
So out of the ordinary, we get this glimpse into actual teamwork, which is not normal from these practice glimpses that the media gets. And so I start thinking about this and putting it all together. And my only conclusion, and listen, that doesn't mean I'm right, but it's the only conclusion I can come up with that makes sense to me, is that Matt Rule, the coaching staff, wanted everybody to see, hey, we're not just talking about
That's why I
this.
wanted to know how it came about that they were going to get the time.
Right. That they were going to get to see it.
Because however that happened, I could have at least speculated on what the motives were.
Yeah. I think, there's, I don't think that Coach Rule was just doing it out of the kindness of his heart.
It doesn't strike me as to do it willy-nilly.
Or to do it just because, we got to give the media something.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
he's interesting. I know, right?
Maybe.
And it's hard because you don't want to pin him in.
No, but maybe it serves a couple purposes.
Because he's always thinking, right?
Yeah.
So he's. I mean, he can be very slippery because he's such a quick blinker. Because I did think it was interesting. This is just all context clues because I'm not in that environment, so I need to kind of feel it to really guess, or to think about it. But so now I'm guessing. I just looked at the receivers and who was with who and who was doing what, and I can't help but to think, I don't know, there's something in there that was like, okay, this was kind of by design. But there's two things. Number one, you don't know who's going to play well and who's not.
Yeah. But maybe they do. Maybe in that situation they did know who was going to play well.
That would be something. I mean, just think about what you're saying.
No, I know.
You don't have to backpedal from it. I'm saying if you're right, just think about having that good of a feel for your guys this early.
But I mean, I'm not backpedaling. I guess I'm doubling down. Is if you have seen, I assume they've done this type of work quite a bit through spring so far. They probably have a pretty good idea that, hey, DK is going to show out a little bit here. This is a good spot for him.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we were talking about earlier, where there's certain situations that lend themselves to how certain guys operate.
So I pit that against the backdrop of just a regular day when nobody's down there.
Yeah.
And it was still kind of similar.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, right? Right. Is if they've seen this before?
Because I didn't get too much in the detail because that's not really why I go. But I just thought it was interesting for me to walk around and see the different groups. I said specifically, right, Friday, I wanted to see him outside in the elements twice. Then I went and watched inside, right? Because you're always rotating because it's competitive. So you're on to the next thing. And I just remember getting in the car and I was like, and I know one of our guys in the stream is like, I can't believe you're surprised. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've coached against this dude his whole life.
I can't believe you're not surprised. If anybody that's not surprised,
I just don't want this to be well, duh, because
that's not what the conversation was.
Yeah, you don't get revisionist history.
Now, listen, I will say,
no, I got to defend him because I remember.
Yeah,
I'm going to defend this part of Kalen because I said this on the show to Andrew. I said, you know what bugs me about this was way back when he was being recruited, and he didn't go to Nebraska, and he went to Missouri, and then Rule kept recruiting him, and he came back to get him from Missouri. Then he was back to being the coolest kid in school again.
Yeah.
And I said at the time, I said, that's the kind of stuff that bugs me about if he was good now.
If he was good when he went to Missouri,
then he was good
now.
then.
Yes.
Right? So don't do that.
He doesn't become good because he committed to Nebraska.
So then I found myself just kind of wanting to defend him just because. But then it's again, and I'm just this is 100% authentic. I'm being truthful here. I know the schemes that we run. I know what we think he's capable of doing. I know what we don't think he's capable of doing. And before you say, oh man, well, you guys were good, stop. Because Anybody can come up with schemes. And I didn't say the same things about. I was terrified. I didn't care who Flores was thrown to. I was terrified for him to have the ball last.
Yeah.
We never, ever, ever felt like that about Kalen. And I'm not knocking Huffman. You got to be able to have these real conversations if people are going to have these hot takes, right? So, like when you're looking at the offense, why when Andy asked Coach Rule the question about, he asked specifically about Coach Huffman and Bellevue West last week, and I was like, man, I said that was kind of weird. I was like, I feel like we got pretty good command of that offense too. But I was happy because of the relationship with high school coaches. Like, that's cool. Not a lot of coaches can do that. But in my head, selfishly, I was like, man, you can't have it this is exactly what I said. You can't have it both ways. You can't say because you're basically kind of saying, oh, are we differentiating between system quarterback and good systems? Because if that's the case, he sure did get a lot of excuses if he was missing a wide receiver or two, right?
Or if the offensive line play wasn't what they wanted it to be.
And it used to drive me crazy. And full disclosure, like, it motivated us. We're like, everybody always gets these buts for the perception of something. So yeah, was there a little extra juice in the tank? Oh, 100%. But I don't know how you. So as this thing's evolving, right? We keep stats, and we've done this for years. And I remember I was at another school, and I thought we had this great package. It was like this nickel package, and Bellevue West took them 18 plays to score, right, on the first drive. They beat our brains in, right? But I was like, and I remember talking to our coordinator at the time, Mizey, and I was like, we should have stayed with it. And you're like, no, we're getting hurt with the QB run game because he would scramble. And he's fantastic. And I'm forgetting his name, the guy that transferred from Millard West. He was amazing, like one of my favorite people of all time. Ended up going to Iowa Western and then South Alabama. Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, so he was one of my, he would keep me up at night because he could move and he was. But anyway, so we go way back to like matching schemes with what quarterback strengths are. So for somebody to say, man, I can't believe you're surprised. How could I not be?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't some topical surface level thing where we have drive charts, success rates on third down, who's open, who's not open. Like, that's why I said it's the challenge for me is to unknow what I think I knew. But there are still some variables that I haven't seen yet. Like, it still has to be crunch time. There still has to be pressure.
Sure.
Things can break. Like, what happens when you break down? And maybe it's because he's in a new environment. I don't know. I just know that I can honestly say he's off to a significantly better start given the surroundings than I thought. And I think a lot of it has to do with the things that we were kind of getting into earlier. Like when I said, the quarterback's hanging around. Like, if he's comfortable and feeling pretty good, like maybe
that's all the difference.
Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know, right? I just think this process of critiquing it is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because I want to see, you want to see people develop and maximize. So now I'm a spectator. Like, I'm watching this thing play out now. I'm watching.
That's really good stuff. We'll have more from spring practice. We'll try and get into some other things as well coming up here in the third hour of Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It's never going to change. His name always going to be there. Same thing with Trez. His name is going to be attached. You hired Matt Rule? Yes, I did, Ravi. And take that away from him. Can't take that away from him. He hired him. Hate him all you want to. Throw him in the same bucket as you throw them Hurley brothers. And I'm there with you.
I will.
Right?
I will. I'll put him in the same bucket.
I can't stand Hurley.
Mike Wilbon's in that bucket now for me too. Like it's just the whole. I call it my Trev lift. Welcome back to hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. For this third hour, we're on KFOR in Lincoln as well, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to tell you about something that's going on in Omaha from now through about a month from now, May 8th. That's at Lauritsen Gardens. They have a herd of dinosaurs that's millions of years and millions of bricks in the making. Experience Brick Live Brickosaurs, an adventure of Jurassic scale at Omaha's Lauritsen Gardens. Through May 12th, come face-to-face with more than 30 iconic dinosaur sculptures made from more than 1.5 million bricks. Discover prehistoric planets and unearth a ton of fun. It's an exhibit you have to see to believe. To build your family's dynamite visit.
Oh, I know.
You see what I did there?
Yeah, I got it.
Visit LauritsenGardens.org. Yeah,
Zoe loves that place anyway.
Yeah, now we got dinosaurs. I can't wait to go check it out.
My boy does a lot of catering for them too, so I'm all in on Lordson.
We love them. Good stuff there. I think I might go check it out this weekend as well. God, I like dinosaurs. I'm a dinosaur guy
too. So Mike is a
big dinosaur guy.
Yeah,
back in the day,
I get all these flying text messages. You know, the funny thing about me having to, like, I'll have to give real opinions on just about anything. That includes players I coach, right? You know, Keenan Cotton or Christian Jones.
Yeah.
Coach against like Chase Lofton or Tamala or Marion Jackson or Vermas or Mooberry. Like sometimes I will, when you see things, so like sometimes I'm going to say some things, and remember, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Right. So this isn't like
you're literally preparing game plans for these people.
Yeah. So strengths, weaknesses.
Yeah. Very analytically approaching the subject.
And sometimes the data is
what it is.
The data.
Yeah.
Right? Like
David Fisdale, take that for data.
Like I know what happens in first quarters versus third quarters. I know teams and their offensive and defensive production after half. Like all those things are in my head when I formulate opinions about what I think players are capable of doing. Now, there's a lot of that I don't know.
So
right?
yeah, let me ask you that. Let me hit on that, right? Because you operate on what you do know. That's all you can do, right? Is operate from the information that you have. What are some of the variables? Because I think we both are surprised by what we've seen from Kalen so far in the spring. So what are the variables outside of him that could have
Is this in general?
Yeah, because like I look at guys that sometimes
where you say I didn't see that coming.
I didn't see that coming, or you need a change of scenery, or whatever it is, right? Whatever. So what are some of those variables? Because certain systems fit guys a little bit better than others. I have to be honest about something that I say all the time, that quarterback is such a situation dependent position. So I mean, we're talking everything from system to coaching, and not saying, okay, good coach, bad coach, but the style of coaching can fit a kid a certain way or a better than a certain other way of coaching. Like, what are some of those variables that you start to think about when you see somebody like Kalen who does surprise you?
So this is anybody, but there's so this could be to the good or to the bad. But I always look at I start with the premise: who needs a babysitter and who doesn't. And that's super myopic, best case scenario. That's guys that can function regardless of what's going on around them. Like the environment is not kind of dictating their behavior, not the outcome, but their behavior.
Sure.
How they can function in that situation, regardless of whether they win or lose or not. That's number one for me.
Sure.
Right? Because you're not always going to get W's. Yeah. And sometimes when you lose, it's not a direct reflection of you. So I separate that. Sometimes that's just it's a byproduct. Okay. Yeah. So I'll look at that later.
And that comes from you coming up in the Tom Osborne process era, right? Of, hey, the process is right, the outcomes will be what they are.
And over time, I think if you have those traits, then in the right environment,
more often than not, you'll get the results you want.
Well, it's not, and it's not environment dependent.
Yeah.
I'm playing the long game with you, which it's much easier to do than if you don't have the basic infrastructure and you need a certain environment to function at a certain level. So I'll take the first part than the second part. So if you're just talking about like quarterback play, sometimes I heard this a ton. Oh, his offensive line isn't this, his offensive line isn't that, right? Or this player was hurt. This guy didn't play, whatever. So like if you think that's a thing, then maybe, and you want him to do well and you're a fan, then maybe you're like, oh man, I just wait till he gets around good players. Right? Like that can be a thing for you. It's not for me. Right? Because I've watched a lot of good players that I know are good players not need super high-end things to have happen.
Sure.
Right? I watched, and this is zero disrespect to Gretna's talent outside the numbers.
They weren't special, though. I mean, those aren't D1 guys.
Especially after they lost Roll 2 years ago.
Yeah,
right? I was like,
those aren't D1 guys.
Somebody's going to have to emerge in a hurry.
That Flores was thrown to. Yeah.
And I watched this guy. If he got the ball last, there's no way I didn't think they weren't winning.
Yeah.
So that's
going up against your unit.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Right. Like,
listen,
I remember watching that game 2-3 years ago now at this point, right? where you and Gretna, Westside and Gretna, are in this battle. And I said, I was by myself, but I said to myself probably halfway through the third quarter, I go, at some point, Zane Flores is going to make a play that nobody else in high school can make.
I always thought about him,
and that's going to decide the game.
I always thought about him. He's going to figure out a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just kind of had that. He's going to figure out a way. Now, let's say I'm using it. Now, do I? What if he doesn't have the culture and people believing in him like he had at Gretna? Would he be different someplace else?
Right.
So it can work the other way too.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he had carte blanche, and sometimes when you're empowered, it accentuates your
100%.
strengths that much more.
And let's say now he's at Oklahoma State, and the coach's kid is playing quarterback.
Yes.
It's like, this isn't.
And
maybe the
I'm
greatest
unfamiliar
situation.
with this.
Yeah.
I'm not used to
Kinda,
it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that can do. How important is your environment and what's around you versus what your baseline is? Then there's just flat out coaching, right? Like schematically or fundamentally. Because one thing you cannot argue about or debate in watching him, and I heard it all. That's why I love this. Oh, man, I always knew. No, you guys didn't, man. I heard what everybody said after the Bellevue West prep game. I heard when he kind of got off to the slow start on television, it was, well, he's missing this player. And that. Nobody ever said, hey, man, but he, and then fill in the positive adjectives. It's fun and it's cool now because he's playing well. But let's not act like everybody saw this coming. Because even when people would use the Elite 11, you would hear these snide comments about the Olympics. So I think at some point, underwear Olympics.
Yeah.
So I think at some point you just have to look at and dumb it down to maybe his character and his resolve is different potentially than what we saw manifest itself in high school. Because I did feel like he was a victim of, and it's almost like we're not family, but I felt like it was a family thing where I can talk about my brother, but you can't. See, we coach against these guys all the time. Doesn't matter if it's Kalen, it's everybody. So I feel like we're entitled to criticize. I didn't always feel like it was fair with what
coming from outside the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's not our guy.
Also,
it's our culture. It's football, right? Like,
yeah.
I heard this about
guys that aren't your guys are still kind of your guys.
I could hear this about CJ.
Yeah.
Oh man, he doesn't make enough splash plays for a 4-star, and it's like, you know what? Like, you don't know what we're asking him to do within the confines of our defense.
Yeah, of the situation,
right? Or
of the system.
There's a ton of Tyson. I heard about Tyson Terry.
Yeah,
it should be more dominant. Really? Like this is his
People
first year.
Said about Hunter Salas.
This is his first one again, right?
They're like, oh, he's sixth best player in the country. Really? It's like, well, he's got 4 other D1 guys on his team. Maybe he's just not selfish.
And I remember with Tyson, I was like, this is his first year really learning to play both ways as a sophomore. Like, you just I don't care who you are.
That's not easy.
No.
Here's the other thing that
So, like, some of those things you don't know how they're going to manifest themselves, like, later on. Maybe maybe what's going on with DK is all in just being empowered.
Yeah.
Right? Or positive feedback, or hey,
maybe
he
growing
has
in maturity. I mean,
could
he's
be
18 years old.
Yeah.
He should be in high school right now still. Like,
so you never. But I do kind of chuckle at the kind of the I told you so or I knew. I'm like,
yeah, they're going back.
No, man. I sat in the stands. For Bellevue West and was that Bellevue West and prep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the one I came up and hung out with you with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard the wind talk and guys around him and this, that, and the other. And oh man, prep is super well coached on the back end. Like everybody,
and maybe he's just gotten better. Like maybe he's just gotten better
at its purest thing. Maybe Sat, Thomas, Rule, like those guys.
Maybe being with a guy that coached Matt Ryan and a bunch of these
or just a
dudes in the
fresh set of
NFL.
eyes, and you can have these conversations without it being
an
indictment on where he came from. Because sometimes you can just know too much.
Also, there's a ton of history of just knowing, I mean, you see this in education all the time, right? You could be a great teacher. If your teaching style doesn't fit the way a certain kid learns, then that kid's not going to do very well in your class. They might not seem like a good student in your class, right? It's the same thing with coaching. Like some kids need to be coached in different ways, or they need to be like, there's certain ways.
And it's very, very fluid.
Yes.
Right.
And there's
like
certain ways of explaining things that click with one kid that don't click with another kid. Right. And if you're a coach that, hey, this is, I teach things in X, Y, and Z manner. Right. But for whatever reason, the kid's brain doesn't process information that way.
That's why I think it's more about than just having good play. That's one of the reasons I think it's more than just about having good players, because it's like, it is like teaching, because it is how you connect. Like, I can't talk to Teddy the same way I talk to Christian. They're both really, really good.
Yeah.
But guess what? The same person, me or Coach Queen or whomever, like, you don't talk to them the same. You may use some of the same verbiage because we have
you want to use the common language, right?
But the delivery is different based on what you're working with.
And there's different way. Again,
pull Coach Wisdom or somebody to the side and say, hey, will you? I don't know if that's a good example because he hasn't had Lofton long enough. But there's probably some fundamental differences between Amarion Jackson and Chase Lofton in terms of how you're going to communicate with them, right?
Well, let's go back to, like, this is so none of these guys are playing or coaching anymore, so I can use examples without feeling bad. So, like, Fred Petito, right? Ran the same offense for 35 years. Okay. Do you think he talked to Todd Doxson the same way he talked to Eric Crouch, the same way he talked to John McCardle, the same way he talked to Adam Shada,
Tarpenian? I'm sure some of the common language was the same, but their rapport, their relationship,
different kids.
It's just
right. They're all different guys. Even though they're running the same thing, you're asking the same thing of them, more or less.
And I'm totally speculating, but I would guess Shada would be a guy like you could turn loose. Jake Galusha would probably be a guy you didn't have to say much to.
No.
Some other guys may have similar skill sets, but you're like, hey,
turn it up a little bit.
You're the guy now.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. Like, that's the part that makes development,
and that's what makes people good coaches.
And I always start with this. Yeah, the babysitter thing is kind of my thing, but you have to be able to handle rigor.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stress that enough. If you cannot do the same thing with purpose over and over and over again in high school, it is unbelievably difficult to do in college unless you get a singular coach or a culture where pouring into you, regardless of what you bring to the table, is part of the DNA. And a lot of coaches just don't have time to do that
well, they don't have the energy to it, or they don't have the temperament for it.
And plus, they've probably seen you before.
Also,
right? You're not.
They've seen a version of you before.
Yeah, they've seen.
This guy's super talented. He's not going to grind.
They've seen those characteristics.
He's super talented. He's not going to work for it.
Yeah.
And so they make assumptions about. Again, same thing we see in teaching. You get a kid's file, you're like, this is a bad kid, right? You got to wipe that away. You got to start over. But the other thing is, other side of that coin, right? Is
there's obviously something about Harburg that the players gravitated towards, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And maybe it was the fact that he was never supposed to be the guy.
But he was still there, and he was still working,
right?
And he was still grinding, and he was willing to go play tight end, and he was willing to go play H-back.
Yeah. So, like, let's say if you're Dylan, you're like, okay, I've never. This is new for me. I have this in my toolbox. Now I'm going to incorporate this. A little pressure. So people are saying some other good things about me, other people. I got to be a good teammate. Now he puts that in his tool belt to go with the physical gifts, right? Where it all like that, it all matters in terms of those developments, because I think we'll all agree until they actually take real life snaps,
we have no idea.
We're just talking.
Also, let me throw this other thing at you, right? Because you're talking about being able to do the same thing over and over again consistently, right? But what if you're not being asked the same question consistently? Like, what if of the coaching staff, there isn't consistency? And I don't know anything about Bellevue West or Huffman or anybody else for that matter, right? But this is just speculation. What if you're a player, whether it's Kalen or anybody else, who comes from a situation, I see it a lot with people, right? With their parents. If they didn't have consistency out of their home life, then as adults, you see that reflected in the way they behave, right? If as a football player, as a quarterback, you don't have consistency in what's asked of you and how things are being taught and how you're supposed to go about your business, then all of a sudden you get that structure, you're going to be a different person, right?
1000%.
So I mean, it's entirely possible that the way Coach Rule structures things, we just talked about how calculated he is, how he thinks about everything, how invested they are in players, how they do these things. It's entirely possible that for the first time in his life, Daniel Kalen is consistently being given the structure in a way that he needs it.
Or how about, because he was in a battle before as a sophomore with Johansson.
Yeah.
Right? So he's seen a guy that's kind of been, anointed is not really the word, but a guy that he was behind, right? He was Danny had to get a little bigger, a little stronger. Johansson was playing a ton. So maybe DK is comfortable being the guy to run it down from behind.
Yeah.
Than maybe the front runner, because
some people are more comfortable being the underdog.
That could be a thing. Right?
Absolutely. There's a million different variables that we don't know.
Because I just remember a couple years ago, Johansson was really struggling in the second half, and we thought, we're like, now may be a good time for.
Can I throw another
for DK to play? And it just did. So maybe he's comfortable, not comfortable, but maybe he knows how to function.
He's got familiarity with the role he's currently in.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to people, right? If you grew up in a chaotic home, even though chaos isn't good for you, sometimes you seek chaos as an adult.
There are people that I try to have relationships with.
Can't do it.
That thrive. They need chaos. It's almost like the self-sabotage. It's real.
No, it's
like it is.
real.
It's a real thing.
Because
the negative slant at looking at something all the time, it's like, well, that's just how I feel. It's never as good as it seems, or I should have known better. Like I can't spend. Like we just can't hang out, right? Like
because if there's
you're
a lot
not wrong and I'm not right, we just can't coexist.
But there's a lot of people that they're only comfortable in chaos because it's all they've ever known, right? So maybe Daniel is more comfortable chasing people down. Maybe that's a place where he feels comfortable and like he can excel. But let me throw out another completely total.
There's wide receivers. There's a couple running backs I think are the exact same way.
Okay.
I think that's how Ramirez built.
To need the chaos?
I never been the guy.
Oh, chasing guys down.
So he's comfortable
chasing,
not needing the attention, right? Like didn't have to come back, and could be a pretty good could be a
contributor,
pretty good contributor.
Yeah,
where guys are just used to function. It's why recruiting is so fascinating, and it's almost why I never. You need a certain baseline of physical attributes. So I don't but it's almost why
that. Yeah.
It's almost why I never get into those parts of things when I watch people's films. Because you know what I couldn't see about Eric Fields?
What's that?
I couldn't tell. I don't know how connected he is. I would never have been able to guess how connected he is to people at home. Like why he felt he needed the either immediate gratification or because Fields was a tremendous talent. He kind of just basically for all intents and purposes just up and bolted,
just bounced.
You can't peg that.
No, not unless you know somebody really really well. And even then, not always.
And so it's like recruiting is, and I hear these guys and God bless the industry, but I'm like, it's in my heart of hearts, man. I'm like, we're talking about all the wrong things.
Let me ask you this because I think this is probably more wild speculation than the other stuff is, which is a little bit at least grounded in reality. There's certain guys that are super talented where in practice they just kind of try stuff. They just they get a little loose with it. They're like, okay, does this work in this situation? And because they're so comfortable in the baseline of what they have that they get, Curry does this a lot, and I know it drives you a little crazy in warm-ups or whatever, but you try things to be like, okay, I don't know if this shot's actually going to ever happen in a game, but if it does, I'm comfortable being in these weird spots. Is it possible that's what we've seen from Dylan at this point? and that's why it looks like Daniel Kaelin's maybe throwing the ball a little bit better. Like, is it possible Dylan is sort of just trying stuff right now?
Yeah, I would entertain that. I don't think that's wild. I don't think that's wild.
Because he knows the cameras are on too.
Yeah.
And he seems like a guy that's been in the spotlight long enough. He kind of knows the score.
I not to say whether I think that's going on or not, but I don't think that's crazy. Right? Because I think he's trying to grow his game too.
Yeah. So if he's already so comfortable in the base set of skills,
and plus,
how else do you grow your game?
Plus, he can be. You ever watched a guy hit in the cage and he's trying out a new swing?
Yeah.
And it doesn't look very good,
Or
but
he's trying out like a new leg kick, or he's trying to go the opposite way every time.
But he's doing things to add to his repertoire, so it takes a little time. That could be part of the process.
Yeah.
So, and here's to say, like at the end of the day, he hasn't looked bad.
No.
It's what we're talking about is what we tried to preface 3 weeks ago. There'll be things that you knew too much. You had your mind made up about both guys. So anything you see to the contrary, you're gonna pit one against the other.
And
remember what we talked about? 100%. Where we talked about winning jobs and if he wins a job and what they'll say, because one was the beneficiary of having not been seen enough, and the other was a victim of have been seen too much.
I do want to get into that. I want to remind you also, we're going to talk Masters here in a little bit. You can go to warhorsecasino.com to see all the different ways you can bet on the Masters, but you got to go to Lincoln or to Horseman's Park in Omaha to actually place those bets, live bets, props, parlays, in-game betting as well. Go to warhorsecasino.com for a full list of details and house rules, or get the Warhorse app and you can see all of that same information as well. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. I want to get into who wins the job and how we'll feel about it next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, kicking in the Big Ten is hard. It's the hardest conference to kick in, I'd say. In the SEC, those guys are complaining down there when it's 50 degrees out, and it's just like, well, it's November here, and it's 20, and there's 30-mile-an-hour gusts, in my face or crosswind. So it's nothing like kicking in the Big Ten, and I think Memorial Stadium's hard to kick in for sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm from here. I got to deal with it, and my job is to go out there and put the ball through the pipes, and that's what I'm going to do.
25. That's the number.
25 what?
Cuts in a row.
Yeah.
Masters.
Yeah.
Tiger.
For our guy Tiger. We'll talk about that with our guest Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net here at 9:43. Before that, I want to tell you about Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you go to teamjackfoundation.org to donate directly to the cause, see what events that they've got coming up, find out all the different projects that they're currently investing in with the $12 million and counting that they've raised to date. Team Jack Foundation just trying to find better treatments for kids with childhood brain cancer and one day a cure. Go to teamjackfoundation.org for more information or to get involved. Our guy Tiger Woods trying to make the 25th cut. He's tied the record at 24. Trying to make 25th cut in a row.
Seems kind of daunting.
Does Jack have the record? Or did he? I mean, is he tied with Jack?
It's
him and somebody else.
It seems very daunting, Shane.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it. He hasn't been playing a lot of golf lately. He looks.
You said he was in a lot of pain.
He looks like he's in a lot of pain.
He looks so old.
He does. The years have started to gain on him a little bit.
Yeah, Fred Couples has 23. Player has 23. 24.
He's tied with a couple guys at 24.
23, yeah.
24, yeah.
I think it's couples and player.
That sounds right.
Is that right?
I think so. Yeah. When you said couples,
Frederique?
Yeah.
Were you a Fred Couples guy?
Not really.
Visor guy?
I mean, honestly, I wasn't really a golf guy until Tiger at all.
Really?
Like, I just didn't. I mean, I was young, and he came up in. So the thing I remember watching the '97 Masters, as like 9 or 10 years old at that point, and I remember him winning that tournament and having it, understanding it was a big deal.
That's funny because Jake Cootie reminded me, or she brought up a good point. When we were having the Caitlin Clark, and I said, "Gosh, do you dare say kind of Tiger Woods-esque?" And without saying it in typical Jess fashion, she was like, "Yeah, I'd probably pump the brakes on that until you get like somebody like Justin Thomas that says, I'm golfing today because I watched Tiger." Like, we probably would have to put it on the back burner a little bit for young ladies to say, well, this is because I watched Caitlin Clark. I could actually entertain that discussion waiting a little bit, but in the immediacy of drawing people in right now,
yeah,
it's absolutely on par.
Well, it doesn't have to be the whole Tiger Woods experience to be Tiger Woods-esque, right? Like, are there going to be girls and women that play basketball because of watching Caitlin Clark at a young age? Yeah, probably. And we won't know that for a long time. But that doesn't change the fact that people were watching women's basketball that have never watched women's basketball before. The same way that people were watching golf that had never had any interest in golf before. I mean, the women's championship game outdrew the men's championship game for the first time ever. It was
18-7 is a big number.
And it was like 14-9 for the men, which is still a good number, right? It's about kind of what the men have been drawing, but it's almost double what the women drew last year, which was just under 10 million, which was also a Caitlin Clark game against Angel Reese and LSU, which was a huge matchup, and that was a huge number at the time. But it's okay for it not to be the whole Tiger Woods experience and to still acknowledge that she's had a similar effect on women's basketball, at least in the short term, right? I don't know if those fans are going to turn into WNBA fans to keep watching Caitlin Clark. I don't know if they're going to continue.
When's that draft? Is that Monday?
27th? No, that's NFL draft. It's coming up. It's.
I think it's next week.
Yeah, 14th. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe.
It's coming up here pretty quick, and then the season starts basically a month after that, right? So not a long off season for our girl C squared there, but it is. I don't know if those people are going to carry over and continue to be women's college basketball fans. I don't know if those people are going to become WNBA fans. I don't know any of that.
The sport is in a really good spot.
It's in a great spot, right? You've got stars still in college. You've got stars in the NBA already moving into the NBA.
How do you think they got away with marketing to a particular player with such a dynasty on the horizon? I got the sense of all college basketball season that South Carolina was the afterthought.
They 100% were.
And
how many people found out?
But they pulled it off, though.
How many people found out that South Carolina was undefeated on the night of the championship? Because I bet it was a bunch.
A handful, yeah.
I bet it was a bunch. I bet there was people that are like, wait a second, Iowa's not the best team in college basketball? What do you mean there's an undefeated team?
As the one seed in the toughest, arguably, well, I don't even think it's arguable, but the toughest region.
It's like, what do you mean there's an undefeated team out here? What do you mean Iowa's a 7-point dog going into this game?
When I was gone for like the 4 days I was gone, I was in Iowa, and I had to explain it several times that Iowa lost to a team a little bit down the road, a little bit west of there.
Shane, the sports aficionado,
had to explain it a couple times.
The phenomenon
maybe
of
more than once.
College basketball,
and that's what everybody where I was at in Iowa. That's what everybody was talking about. It was just
so Nebraska women should be national champs.
Stop that!
Just like Creighton's the national champs.
Yeah,
but Iowa didn't win, so technically Nebraska women are runners up.
Yeah,
that's how
runners up.
That's how the transitive property works.
Go Coach Williams.
No, I think you can acknowledge the impact it has without having to wait and see if it continues to have that impact, right? Because in the moment, it was real. Like what happened in the moment was real. Whether it lasts or not, I don't know. I can't tell you that. But I do know that there's tangible evidence to say what we saw with the Caitlin Clark effect was a real thing. And that's okay. The Tiger Woods thing was a real thing. I'm sure there were people that only tuned in to golf because of Tiger Woods, and maybe they faded away after that. But I also know,
the numbers are. I mean, that data is out there.
But I also know that there's a ton of people that played golf and still play golf because of Tiger Woods. Maybe they don't watch the sport anymore.
How long ago does 19 seem for Tiger at Augusta?
2019?
Yeah,
a long time.
Yeah,
it feels like.
Do you think I'm weird sending you the Tiger Woods TikToks?
No, I like Tiger Woods. Like I'm a Tiger Woods guy. Like it
is like on my FYP page a ton. He's had some. I forget probably a quarter of just random rounds, like let's say at the Riviera or that aren't in a majors where it's like, wow, he shot a 29 on the front nine.
He's run out in a 61 for no reason.
8 consecutive birdie. Like the one I just sent, I'm like, it might have been the Riviera. Not that the Riviera is a small golf tournament.
Yeah.
It isn't. But so maybe it wasn't the Riv. It was something else.
Kind of random though.
And I'm like, this place is packed.
Yeah.
It wasn't TPC. It was. I got to go back and look at that. It's probably on our text exchange. But I'm like, what is? That's what those guys were talking about last week when everybody doubled down on Roy's first thoughts of, listen, this live thing, like we need the fans.
Yeah.
We can't keep moving in this direction. We need a plan.
It's not sustainable if you're just pouring money into something that nobody cares about. It's not. Even if you have the money.
How long ago was the blowback on the merger between the two? And I mean, people were, you're disingenuous. This is not what we signed up for. You said there'd never be a collab, and we haven't heard nary a peep. And now we're like, okay, what's next?
Now it's all just kind of just out there. I mean, I don't think about Liv at all. I don't.
Yeah,
doesn't even cross my mind.
I do cheer for guys like Kim that are making a comeback.
Yeah,
12 years. It didn't seem like he'd been gone that long.
It kind of creeps up on you.
And he looks like he's been through it.
Yeah. It kind of creeps up on you, especially with golfers because they have such long careers. Like a long time can go by. Like, it's weird to me.
He was giving a rundown of like his injuries.
Yeah.
But I don't know how more, like listen, I'm here for the whole alternative measures and holistic medicine. How many horror stories are we going to hear about people being addicted to pain medication?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an entire Hulu series on it right now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I just look at how he's aged.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and listen, there's some people that I'm absolutely not here for hating on like modern medicine or whatever, but like it wears on you. Like there's a trade-off, and the trade-off might be worth it. You might need it in that moment, but it's not free.
Yeah.
Like everything has a price. And I think we're seeing that with,
says the guy that takes medicine every day. That's got to be a realistic thing that you have to tell yourself.
It is. There is a price. And that's not just the insulin, it's all the other stuff too, to keep myself alive and functioning. Like there's a trade-off every single day. It's a real thing. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Ryan Ballengee of Golf News Net to talk about the Masters in a little bit greater depth. That's coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It's flattering. It's nice to hear, in my opinion, the best player ever to play the game say something like that. So, yeah, I mean, does that mean that it's going to happen? Obviously not, but he's been around the game long enough to know that I at least have the potential to do it. And
no, I ache every day, and I prefer it warm and humid and hot. And I know we're getting some thunderstorms, so at least it'll be hot. It won't be like last year.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by Ryan Ballengee of Golf News Net. Ryan, how are you this morning?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate your time, Ryan. I know it is pretty hectic. All eyes on the health and status of a guy that says he doesn't feel good, that's going for a cuts record, or is it about the others for you right now with what's hot and current?
Well, I mean, Tiger's got the opportunity to do something really special this week, make a 24th consecutive cut, break the tie that he has with Fred Couples. He was asked about that yesterday in his pre-tournament news conference. And I think he really takes a lot of pride in this record and also having the PGA Tour cuts made record, which is something that will probably never be beaten. He very much values consistency and relevancy for a long time, and he has that, and he has an opportunity to kind of cement himself as the most relevant for the longest at his favorite tournament.
Ryan, we won't make this whole interview about Tiger because there's obviously a lot of other really good golfers that are much more likely to actually be competitive and win this thing. But I do have to ask, how do you see this late stage of Tiger's career playing out? I mean, is it just going to be a string of him like it's been for the last, 8 to 10 years of him trying to get healthy, not playing very much golf, going to a major? We hope he's competitive. Like as he gets towards closer to 50 years old, like how does this, I guess, what's the end game here for Tiger? Is it just to continue to be around as long as possible? Like that's something I found myself thinking about a lot this week.
Yeah, I try to think about it in terms of Ben Hogan's career, because Ben Hogan came back from a car wreck that should have killed him and wound up winning multiple major championships, being the best golfer in the world, but only playing 6, 7, 8 times a year. He made sure that he got his body ready for major championships, grinded through them, and that's pretty much all he did. And I think that even though the reasons for their injuries are very different, I think that's kind of where Tiger is with it, that in a perfect world, he plays 6 to 7 times a year. He plays the 4 majors. He plays Riviera. If he's feeling well, he plays the Players. Then he goes and plays his own tournament in the Bahamas, and he goes and plays the father-son with Charlie, as long as that's still an option for him. And that's probably the extent of it. Does that mean he can be the same golfer or even sniff being the same golfer he once was even in 2019 or 18 or 17? Probably not. But I think he knows that deep down too. He's trying to catch lightning in a bottle in the same way he did in that comeback run we just alluded to, but for literally 4 days. And he knows and has talked about this for a long time, going back to when he started to have is serious back problems, that the two tournaments where it doesn't really matter how old you are the Masters and the Open Championship. So at the end of the day, those are the two that mean the most to him at this stage of his career, because his ability to get around the golf course, his mental acuity is still better than pretty much anybody this side of Scotty Scheffler. So if he can put together the physical piece of it for 4 miracle days, then something crazy can happen.
It's interesting because this is always the major where I feel like it's more about where people talk about course familiarity and being able to navigate the grounds more than it is how anybody's particular talents. It's always been about the course. Is that why we get so much run, especially as of late, for guys like Jordan Spieth and Zalatoris is going to get some run, guys whose games kind of fit this course, even though we don't talk about how well they have or haven't played lately. They're always going to be in the hunt because it's Augusta.
Experience definitely matters, and I feel like it compounds itself here more than any other tournament. I mean, the other majors move around, right? And you might see one major venue in the rotation for a U.S. Open, a PGA, twice in your career at best. In the Open, they've got 9 predefined courses. You're going to see the Open more than at St. Andrews more than any other if you have a long career, but you're only going to see those probably 2 or 3 times. Masters you get to see every year. You get to figure out what you can learn and get better at and where not to hit it, what to do, more importantly, what not to do. And I think the Masters is a lot about knowing what not to do. And that gives you the best position to then be aggressive when you can be. And you rack up that knowledge over time by success and by failure at this venue. And so to your point about the Spieths or the Koepkas or the Mickelsons or Woodses, McIlroys even of the world that consistently post great finishes here, part of that is because they have that capability. They have that knowledge, that mental kind of yardage book of here's what I need to do in each and every situation. And that makes them more likely to be successful than players who just don't have that kind of experience.
So no surprise really at all. And it's close. It's 11-1, 12-1. Koepka's got the third best odds ahead of guys like Jon Rahm.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks have probably become public bettors of Brooks Koepka because he does specialize in the majors. He is the reigning PGA champion, and for whatever reason, he's really easy to forget. And the reason probably is because he plays on Live Golf.
Yeah.
And that's not an indictment of him. That's just who he is. He doesn't care about regular season tournaments. He only really cares about 4 tournaments per year, and those are the legacy defining ones. And this one, he's been so close at multiple times. He's been second. He's been tied second. He should have won it last year. He let it slip through his fingers. It's kind of hard to forget that, but you do. And he's not putting his best right now. He's kind of waffling between what putter he's going to use this week. So I personally am not invested in him. But if he just kind of snaps into place, you're going to feel silly going, man, I knew this guy was going to do that again, because that's who he is.
We're talking with Ryan Ballengee of Golf News Net. Ryan, you mentioned Scotty Scheffler earlier as, obviously the mental acuity, and we were talking about Tiger Woods. He's got a couple wins in about the last month. Is there anybody playing even close to the level that he is? I mean, if you look at the Vegas odds.
I got one for you, Ryan. Should I get back on the Matsuyama train?
Well, I'll take 2 parts. So I really do like Hideki this week.
Me too.
If you look at the history,
playing well.
If you look at he's playing great. He won at Riviera. Riviera tends to be an indicator of how well you're going to do at Augusta over the course of your career, and certainly in the season which you win. So that's a good indicator. Just kind of on the fringe of good, good to bad odds, depending on how you think about him. He isn't the best putter. Neither Scotty. You don't have to be a great putter to win here. Statistically speaking, historically speaking, the last 12 Masters, you had to have gained 18 strokes tee to green in your last 4 tournaments before the Masters. There are 16 guys in the field who can do that. Hideki Matsuyama is one of them. Scotty Scheffler is one of them. There, then figure out the 14 others, and we can go over those. But if you got to be in that group, you got to be a great tee to green player. You don't have to be a great putter to win the Masters, because the golf course is so hard that putting is very difficult. You really have to putt to avoid failure. You have to putt to avoid 3 putts. When you get in a good position to be aggressive, then you be aggressive. So it's a difficult skill for everybody at the Masters. That helps guys who can't putt very well, like Scheffler, like Matsuyama. So, I mean, Scheffler is so much better than everybody else tee to green right now. It's almost unfathomable how much better he is than everybody else. And that includes Rahm, that includes McIlroy, that includes Koepka. It's not even close. But to put him at Tiger level odds from when he was the peak of his powers, where you would have this conversation of, do you take Tiger or the field? I mean, that's kind of what we're at with Scotty Scheffler. Would you take Scotty or the field? And I think you kind of have to take the field. But, man, he's playing so much better than everybody else right now.
It's interesting. A couple there, and I wouldn't call them long shots, but names people like based on how they're playing. I know Joaquin Neiman's getting a ton of run, and a lot of people like Cam Smith. How do you like both of their games heading into tomorrow?
I will probably avoid Cam Smith just because he pulled out of last week's live event with food poisoning. So I don't know where he is health-wise, and I'm just going to kind of leave well enough alone there. He does have a decent track record here. But then you've got Neiman, who won a couple live events. He won the Australian Open, which is really why he got invited to this thing. At least that's what the Masters says. He's a good player, but I feel like he may have peaked too soon. And maybe has he played pretty well last week at Doral on the live event. But I feel like maybe he got up too early, and we'll see. He's never had a top 10 finish in a major. I think a lot of people, he's had 19 major starts. He's never finished in the top 10. Kind of like Max Homa territory, where, yeah, you can win plenty of tournaments, but you got to prove it in the majors before I can put some actual U.S. dollars on you. So that's a struggle for me with Demon.
A little couple of rapid fires, at least for me. What about Tagala?
I really love his imagination.
50 to 1.
He's one of the guys in that 16-player group in terms of tee to green strokes gained.
Okay.
His imagination is so great at this place. It really works well because he can hit any shot. That's how he thinks about golf. A lot of pros today hit one stock shot very well, and then when they're challenged to do something else, they kind of struggle. That is not Tagala. I mean, he's almost kind of like Bubba Watson in that regard. Just a great imagination. See it, hit it, do it. I really like that. I really like his chances, and it's deep enough that he's worth a bet for sure.
Ryan, is he the longest odds of that group of 16 that you're talking about, tee to green?
Siwoo Kim is up there.
And he's 50 to 1 too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he opened 90 to 1 on Monday, and then people realized, oh wait, these odds are way mispriced. And that was 50 to 1.
We like getting a little bit of value. Ryan, we appreciate your time. Enjoy the weekend, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
That's Ryan Ballengee of Golf News Net. We love that. I know we didn't get to D-Line today. Sometimes this show is like a poorly maintained carnival ride. We're just holding on for dear life.
Quarterbacks.
But we will get it tomorrow or someday, I promise.